Chapter 4285. Damn it, this is probably the most powerful pig I've ever seen. Zhenfeng couldn't help but send a voice transmission to Zhan Han. Unfortunately, Zhan Han turned a deaf ear to Zhenfeng's words, as if she was thinking about something else. You! If you dare to touch me, my ancestor will definitely not let you off. The five-colored shellfish lost its support and could only shout loudly, trying to struggle. Taoist Master Xiao. Samantha Bhadra hurriedly sent a voice transmission. This monster is right, its ancestor is indeed very difficult to deal with. Even Mahavairakana doesn't want to cause too much trouble. Taoist Master doesn't need to be too difficult. Xiao Hua thought for a moment, then raised his hand and pointed. His right index finger was like a bolt of lightning, instantly landing on the shellfish monster's body. Not good. The monster was shocked, but he only had a thought before Xiao Hua's index finger landed on his body like the annihilation of heaven and earth. All the surrounding light and shadow were covered by this index finger. Damn it. How could the monster not know what Xiao Hua wanted to do? Just as he felt the whole world sink into darkness, he cursed inwardly. The five-colored halo immediately became chaotic, and a powerful destructive wave was born from the monster's body. Humph! Xiao Hua coldly snorted, then raised his hand and grabbed. The five-colored halo instantly became still, and his finger still landed on the monster's body paper. However, it was only for a moment, and the five-colored halo became chaotic again, and the wave was still rushing out. Xiao Hua was slightly stunned, and the corner of his mouth revealed disdain as he said, "Since you want to die? Then I'll fulfill your wish. Kill." Xiao Hua ordered without hesitation, then raised his hand and grabbed. The chaotic five-colored halo fell into the air. Xiao Hua took out the sword gourd and withdrew the five-colored halo. On the other side, devouring heaven's nine-toothed rake had already hit the monster's body. Pooh! With a sound, 9 extremely deep holes appeared on the shellfish's body. Namo Maitreya Buddha. Chunzong couldn't help but chant when he saw Tunshin kill the five-colored demon. Excellent, excellent. In fact, Yuan Tongtian's wishful staff was not much slower than the devouring sky beast. However, before the wishful staff fell, Yuan Tongtian hesitated for a moment. It was in this moment that the devouring sky beast killed the five-colored demon race. Yuan Tongtian stole a glance at Xiao Hua, fearing that Xiao Hua would scold him. However, at that moment, Xiao Hua's brows were tightly furrowed. Evidently, he was still furious and did not pay attention to Yuan Tongtian. Sage. Yuan Tongtian couldn't help but ask, "Is that demon?" "You don't have to ask." Xiao Hua mercilessly interrupted Yuan Tongtian's question. He raised his hand and put away the monster's five-colored shell. He then pointed at the sword gourd that he didn't put away. A fist-sized five-colored light flew out. This five-colored light wasn't from the monster just now. Xiao Hua had obtained it from the Eldritch continent. This light fell in front of Yuan Tongtian. Xiao Hua said, "This old man is fated to meet you. This thing is for you." Yuan Tongtian's heart warmed, but he didn't accept the five-colored light. Instead, he bowed and said, "This junior has a small request. I don't know if I should say it or not." "Say it." Xiao Hua was in a bad mood. He glanced at Yuan Tongtian and said casually, "Senior, although the magic wand in this junior's hand was given to me by my master, it is no longer of great use. This junior is reluctant to throw it away. If someone takes pity on this junior, can this magic wand be given to me?" Yuan Tongtian carefully raised the wishful staff above his head and asked respectfully. Xiao Hua was stunned. He didn't expect Yuan Tongtian to have such a request. However, looking at the wishful staff in Yuan Tongtian's hand, Xiao Hua was a little embarrassed. At this time, the wishful staff was no longer suitable for Xiao Hua to use. Xiao Hua had obtained the refining method of the 5 elements wishful heavenly staff and 3 of the 5 elements magnetism. As for the whereabouts of the other 2, Xiao Hua already had an idea. As long as he found the opportunity, it was possible to refine the real 5 elements wishful heavenly staff. There was no problem in giving the wishful staff to Yuan Tongtian. Of course, among Xiao Hua's direct disciples, Yuan Ye was also suitable to use the wishful staff. However, Yuan Ye already had the bone dragon devil spear, so there was no need to give the wishful staff to him. However, at this time, Yuan Tongtian was protecting Chuanzong. The sutra-seeking bliss was a product of the compromise between the Buddhist sect and the Confucian cultivators. Although Yuan Tongtian had already intervened in the sutra-seeking bliss, Xueqi could be regarded as the fourth force in the sutra-seeking bliss in addition to the Confucian cultivators, the Buddhist sect and the demon race. However, Xueqi had no interest in sharing any benefits from the sutra-seeking bliss. He told Yuan Tongtian to protect Zhang Luer only to protect Zhang Luer's safety. It had nothing to do with any benefits. However, if Xueqi gave the wishful staff to Yuan Tongtian at this time, even if Yuan Tongtian had nothing to do with Xueqi, those Confucian cultivators who could turn black into white would immediately let their imaginations run wild. Needless to say, Yuan Tongtian was originally related to Xueqi. With Xueqi's current cultivation and strength, it would be a joke to say that he was afraid of the Buddhist sect and the Confucian cultivators. However, if this caused a dispute, Xueqi felt that it was not worth it. Therefore, Xueqi looked at Yuan Tongtian's sincere face and said with a smile, "This old man can't give it to you now. If you like it, this old man will keep it for you first. After the sutra-seeking bliss, when you return from the Thunder Temple, this old man will give it to you." Really? Yuan Tongtian was overjoyed. He somersaulted in the air and said with a smile, "Taoist master must keep this thing well. This junior has already escorted Xuanzang master back from the Thunder Temple. Now that we have passed by the Great Snow Mountain, we will soon return to the hidden immortal continent." "What?" Xueqi suddenly woke up and hurriedly asked. "You have already been to the Thunder Temple since the Longevity Town? You have already returned with the Mahayana Buddhist Sutra?" Yuan Tongtian's eyes turned rapidly. Thinking of the vision just now, he understood Xueqi's thoughts and hurriedly replied respectfully. "Let Taoist master know, if we count from the time Xuanzang master left the Longevity Town, it has already been 218 years. Taoist master must have gone to other places, so you don't know about this matter." Hearing that it was only 218 years, Xueqi let out a long sigh of relief and thought to himself, "That's good. Only 200 years. Oh, if we count it this way, this Xiao has been in the ruins for 100 years, and in the great desolate continent for another 100 years. The two added together is similar to the time of the three continents. In the heavenly prison. Haha, just treat it as a moment of seclusion." Then, Xueqi nodded at Yuan Tongtian and said, "That's right, this old man has some matters to attend to. I just returned from another place and happened to encounter this matter. This old man will temporarily keep it for you. After you escort Xuanzang back to the Longevity Town and complete the sutra-seeking bliss, feel free to come find me." With that, Xueqi waved his sleeve and kept the wishful staff. Taoist master. If it was any other time, Yuan Tongtian would naturally not ask, but at this time, he was worried about his gains and losses, so he hurriedly asked, "When the time comes, where can this junior find senior?" "Do you still need to ask?" Xueqi rolled his eyes in annoyance, no longer paying attention to Yuan Tongtian, and looked at the sky-devouring beast. Seeing that Xueqi ignored him, Yuan Tongtian became depressed again, but after a while, he laughed involuntarily. At this time, Xueqi's strength was already at the 9th level of essence force, and he was already the focus of attention in the three continents. Where he was there still a need to ask? Was there still a need for Xueqi to tell him personally? Yuan Tongtian could not help but laugh. While Yuan Tongtian was rejoicing, Xueqi said to the sky-devouring beast, "That's right. Xueqi, you just arrived in the three continents and already made a great contribution in front of the Maitreya Buddha. Now that the sutra-seeking bliss is not over yet, if you still want to protect the Maitreya Buddha's physical body in this life, now is the best opportunity." The sky-devouring beast had been anxiously waiting at the side, looking at Xuanzang several times. He had only seen Xuanzang's appearance in the shrine in the Void Continent. Now that Xuanzang was standing in front of him, how could he not be excited? Hearing Xueqi's words, the sky-devouring beast hurriedly flew to Xuanzang, kowtowed to the clouds, and said respectfully, "Master, please accept a bow from this disciple. This disciple is willing to escort Master to the sutra-seeking bliss." Ah? Xuanzang could not take it anymore. The change was too sudden, and he really did not know how to deal with it. He looked at the sky-devouring beast in astonishment, then looked at Xueqi, and finally his gaze landed on Samantabhadra Bodhisattva. Samantabhadra Bodhisattva also smiled bitterly. The sky-devouring beast was an expert whose strength surpassed his. How could he decide whether the sky-devouring beast stayed or left? Furthermore, he did not know the origin of the sky-devouring beast, but he clearly saw the fluctuations of the laws of heaven and earth falling on the sky-devouring beast's body. In other words, the sky-devouring beast's true strength might not be at the upper stage of the 8th level of essence force. Such an expert actually wanted to become Chun Zhang's disciple and escort him back to the hidden immortal continent. How could Chun Zhang encounter any more calamities? The future arrangements of the Confucian cultivators and the Buddhist sect would be messed up. Such a big matter. How could he make the decision? Not only did Samantabhadra Bodhisattva not know whether to laugh or cry, but even Dragon Horse Zhenfeng and Zhenhan looked at each other. If the sky-devouring beast was not too strong, Dragon Vein Zhenfeng would have jumped out and scolded the sky-devouring beast. I've seen people picking peaches, but I've never seen such a brazen way of picking peaches. Samantabhadra Bodhisattva wanted Chun Zhang to reject the sky-devouring beast, but looking at the sky-devouring beast and Xiao Hua, he could not afford to offend either of them. However, a bodhisattva was a bodhisattva. He thought quickly and calmly bowed to Buddha Bodhi beside him and said, Namantabhadra Buddha, please make a decision on this matter. Samantabhadra Bodhisattva of Namo Maitreya could shirk responsibility, so could Buddha Bodhi. He smiled and said, Namo Maitreya Buddha, I am not the Buddha Lord yet. How about we talk about this after I settle the karma between me and Xuanzang? Namantabhadra Buddha. Samantabhadra Bodhisattva was somewhat puzzled, but he still respectfully said, This disciple will listen to the Buddha Lord's arrangement. Buddha Bodhi looked at Chun Zhang, who was standing beside Xiao Hua in the distance. With a benevolent expression, he walked step by step towards Chun Zhang. With each step, an 8th-grade lotus throne would appear under his feet. With each step, the void would emit the mournful cries of 10,000 Buddhas. With each step, a sweet rain would fall from the sky. This sweet rain was like the weeping of heaven and earth. It also seemed that the Buddha was moved by Buddha Bodhi's sacrifice. Chapter 4286. Xuanzang. Bodhi walked in front of Xuanzang and shrunk to Xuanzang's size. His eyes were apologetic as he said, This poor monk coincidentally took away your fortune, now I will return it all to you. Before Bodhi could finish his words, the sky was filled with heavenly flowers. Countless Buddhist lotuses bloomed halfway up the snowy mountain. The entire world was shaking. A heavenly voice echoed in the sky. Goodness, sorrow. Following this voice, Bodhi and Xuanzang's bodies emitted incomparably dazzling Buddhist light. Namo Amitabha. Bodhi chanted the name of Buddha and raised his hand. A fist-sized lotus formed from Buddha light emerged from his finger and slowly landed between Xuanzang's eyebrows. Boom. A golden light visible to the naked eye rushed out from the top of Xuanzang's head and turned into a Buddhist lotus that was several acres in size. This Buddhist lotus seemed to be at the 9th rank, but it also seemed to have surpassed the 9th rank. However, in just a short moment, all of its appearances more or less disappeared and then retracted into Xuanzang's head. At this time, Xuanzang's eyes were pure. He had completely understood all of the karma. His gaze was like lightning as it fell on Buddha Bodhi's golden body that was slowly collapsing and turning into golden liquid. Bodhi's arm was still raised and there were still remnants of the Buddhist light on his finger. Namo Maitreya. Xuanzang smiled and also raised his finger and pointed at Bodhi's finger. Boom. The moment the two fingers touched, endless Buddhist light came out from the two fingers. The space within 100 feet folded and collapsed. One by one, Buddhist kingdoms were annihilated. There were even strands of black energy that resembled devilish energy floating out from the Buddhist kingdoms. Xuanzang's expression didn't change in the face of this abnormality. He only said, Buddhist Lord is wrong. Tribulation is fate and fate is tribulation. Karma is karma and karma is passing. Xuanzang's tribulation is Buddhist Lord's fate. Buddhist Lord's karma is Xuanzang's karma. Perhaps the previous merits belong to Xuanzang, but they also belong to Namo Maitreya. Now that Xuanzang is no longer Namo Maitreya, these merits don't belong to Xuanzang anymore. Xuanzang has his own path and Buddhist Lord also has his own path. Xuanzang doesn't know where Buddhist Lord's path is, but Buddhist Lord already knows where Buddhist Lord's path is. Therefore, if it belongs to Buddha Lord, please take it away. If it belongs to Xuanzang, please return it to Xuanzang. Boom. The whole world shook again, and a clear sound of nature descended from the sky. Sorrow goodness. The two sounds were both of sorrow and goodness, but the order of the two sounds was different, and there was a great difference in meaning. Unfortunately, at this time, Xueqi didn't have time to understand because the Tree of Seven Wonders was unable to stop the golden body of Buddha's light from falling. Moreover, as Xuanzang's finger fell on Buddha Bodhi's finger, under the golden light, Buddha Bodhi's golden body of Buddha Bodhi actually became solid and transparent. Obviously, Xuanzang refused to accept Buddha Bodhi's ancient fortune from the untainted land and all the merits of his previous lives. He refused to accept the Buddha's fruit of Namo Maitreya. Xueqi couldn't help but be anxious and shouted, "What are you doing? This originally belonged to you." The words Lu called to Xuanzang's heart. Xuanzang smiled, but the flying snow in the sky turned into mysterious heavenly flowers. He said, "I don't need any Buddha's fruit, worship, or merits. What I want to do is to pass this Buddhist scripture, whether it's a Mahayana Buddhist scripture or a small success Buddhist scripture, into everyone's heart." But Xueqi was extremely puzzled and said, "There's no contradiction between passing the Buddhist scripture and attaining the fruit. If you attain the fruit of Namo Maitreya, wouldn't it be more convenient for you to pass the Buddhist scripture? I was Namo Maitreya in my previous life. No one knows this better than I." Xuanzang didn't explain and said, "I have already made up my mind. Reverend, you don't need to say any more. I was Namo Maitreya in my previous life. No one knows this better than I." Xuanzang didn't explain and said, "I have already made up my mind. Reverend, you don't need to say any more." %yen #and in the exquisite temple, Dragon Horse Zhenfeng couldn't help but mutter a few words in dragon language. Although his voice was soft, Xuanzang Han could hear it clearly. He didn't understand what Dragon Horse Zhenfeng was saying, but looking at Dragon Horse Zhenfeng's face and gnashing teeth, Xuanzang Han smiled bitterly. How could he not know that Dragon Horse Zhenfeng was cursing and scolding Xuanzang? These words were definitely the same as the words that he had cursed in his heart more than 10,000 times. It's just that Xuanzang Han didn't say it out loud. Sure enough, Longma Zhenfeng transmitted his voice again. "Damn, is this monk crazy? Could it be that 10 years ago, he was captured by the Golden Pheasant Empress in the Phoenix Nest mountain range and failed to get married, and since then he lost his mind? Seeing the Buddhist scripture that he cultivated for 9 lifetimes in front of him, he actually doesn't want it. What is he thinking? Does he want to get the Lei Yin Temple's reward of not pocketing money or being a good person?" Xuanzang Han also transmitted his voice. "That's right. I am also puzzled. This monk must have gone crazy from chanting scriptures, or his high fever from a few days ago has not subsided. Now his brain is damaged. This is clearly his own merit and not someone else's. Now that he is giving it back, how can he refuse? He is really stupid." Dragon Horse Zhenfeng scolded again and shouted, "I have called him master for 200 years. Isn't it all for this day? He doesn't want this Buddhist scripture. What should we do? I am carrying this bullshit scripture. Do I really have to send it to Longevity Town?" Hee. Xuanzang Han was also very regretful in his heart. He wished he could fly over and replace Xuanzang. Then, he vigorously nodded his head. His grandmother, what is the purpose of cultivation? What is the purpose of walking step by step for 200 years? How can he let go of such a fatty meat that was delivered to his mouth? While everyone was still puzzled, the Buddha statue had already landed on top of Bodhi's head and was about to land on his head. Buddha Bodhi was somewhat flustered. He hurriedly lowered his body, wanting to dodge. Unfortunately, Buddha Bodhi's body was somewhat similar to lightning tribulation. Although the Buddha light was faint, under the Buddha light, Buddha Bodhi's body was unable to move. While Buddha Bodhi was flustered, Xueqi was also anxious. In the great desolate continent's Chaotian Palace, he had a falling out with Buddha Bodhi and almost killed him. Wasn't his purpose to leave the opportunity for Zhang Luer? Who knew that at this time, Zhang Luer would actually refuse? This was something Xueqi had never thought of. Xueqi slapped his head. Clang! A loud sound was heard. Above his head, the light of the stars and the moon soared into the sky. Although the surrounding space had already been enveloped by the Buddha light, the brilliance of the stars and the moon still stubbornly squeezed into the nearby void. Then boom boom boom. A violent roar was heard from the top of the big snow mountain. The power of the stars and the moon penetrated the void and rushed into Xueqi's body. This vast power of the stars and the moon was like the Milky Way hanging upside down, causing the Buddha light to sway a little. Ah? Samantabhadra Bodhisattva of Namo was shocked and said anxiously, "Senior, what are you doing? This is the Buddha light of my Buddha kingdom. It's not an ordinary method." Samantabhadra Bodhisattva of Namo had just finished speaking when his words came to an abrupt halt. His eyes even flashed with horror as he looked at Xiao Hua. As the starlight fell, Xiao Hua's avatar suddenly expanded. In just a moment, it was already 1,000 zhong in size. Moreover, as the endless starlight fell, the avatar's golden avatar directly rushed up. It seemed that it was not impossible for it to reach 100,000 zhong. As soon as Xiao Hua's Dharma idol was formed, both of his hands immediately assumed the posture of holding up the sky. A several hundred zhong tall golden light phantom emerged from Xiao Hua's hands and held up the descending Buddha's aura golden body. Creak creak. Xiao Hua's aura golden body emitted an obscure movement, and the entire space shook. Under everyone's stupefied gaze, the Buddha's aura golden body that even the wonderful Seven Treasures tree couldn't block was actually blocked by Xiao Hua in midair. Soon after, Xiao Hua's godlike voice resounded. "Xuanzang, I know that you have some misgivings in your heart. Before you complete the sutra seeking extreme bliss, you don't dare to reach the Buddha realm. Today this old man will tell you one thing. Whether it is immortal Emperor Go Chen from the Immortal Palace or the Thunder Temple's Mahavairakana revered Buddha, you don't need to think too much about it. No matter what they said to you, no matter what they promised you, you don't need to care about it. As long as your heart wants to reach the Buddha realm, you can feel at ease and reach the Buddha realm. Let this bullshit sutra seeking extreme bliss go to hell. Everything will be decided by this old man for you." Xuanzang's heart was filled with warmth as tears flowed down from his eyes. He respectfully kneeled in the air and kowtowed. Enlightened one, please know that Lu truly doesn't want to reach the Buddha realm. I also truly want to complete the sutra seeking extreme bliss to the end. Enlightened one, please understand and give this Buddha fruit to this senior." Hiss. Xiao Hua sucked in a breath of cold air. At this moment, the Buddhist light on his hands suddenly increased in strength, and the surrounding space collapsed. Numerous enormous heavenly dragons appeared one after another, and every single one of them had an aura that could destroy the heavens and the earth. This was the Buddha light of the Buddha kingdom's Buddha fruit. Although the Buddha light was merciful and would never casually kill a living being, Xiao Hua was able to stop others from reaching the Buddha realm. The Buddha's demon annihilation lightning was not given for nothing. 10,000 dragons roared as they pounced towards Xiao Hua. Although Xiao Hua had already sealed the space around him, the power of the dragon avatar still smashed this space into pieces. "Xuanzang." Xiao Hua's voice was hoarse as he shouted. "This old man will ask you one last time. Have you made your decision?" Phew. Seeing Xiao Hua's martial prowess, Xuanzang's eyes lit up. However, he still took in a long breath and said word by word. "Yes, enlightened one, this junior has already made his decision. Enlightened one, please withdraw your divine ability. Don't regret it in the future." Xiao Hua clenched his teeth. He still didn't dare to relax and asked again. Xuanzang's tears gushed out again as he said, "This junior has no regrets." Chapter 4287. Xiao Hua's arm trembled a few times, and the Buddha Radiance golden body fell a few dozen feet. Xiao Hua's body also fell a few dozen feet, and Buddha Bodhi also fell a few dozen feet. Xiao Hua asked again in the future. "Don't blame me for not giving you a chance." Xuanzang was a little bewildered, but he still nodded and said, "Don't worry, senior. I know what I'm doing, and I won't blame you. Moreover, I'll be grateful for everything you've done today." Say. Xiao Hua seemed to have aged a lot. He sighed, and his figure shook. He easily escaped from the Buddha Radiance golden body and landed in front of Xuanzang. He helped him up and asked in confusion, Why are you so decisive?" Xuanzang held Xiao Hua's arm. The care and warmth from Xiao Hua's arm made him feel incomparably safe. He wiped away the tears on his face and said with a smile, "I have my own plans. There's no need to ask, enlightened master. Moreover, since the opportunity has already been obtained by that senior, this is also Buddha's arrangement. I don't want to fight for anything." "All right. Xueqi nodded helplessly. He looked at the Buddha radiance rising like a scorching sun in the distance and smiled bitterly. Even if you want to go back on your words now, I'm afraid you can't. Without Xueqi's obstruction, the Buddha radiance golden body rushed towards Buddha Bodhi's head like a falling star. Even if Buddha Bodhi wanted to dodge now, he wouldn't have the chance to do so. Namo Maitreya Buddha, Namo Maitreya Buddha. Countless Buddhist chants seemed to come from different realms. Endless heavenly flowers completely covered the entire snowy mountain. Groups of fairies swayed their waists, bounced off the pipa, and clustered around. The heavenly dragon that wanted to kill Xueqi earlier also became docile at this time, dancing in the void and congratulating him. The previous phenomena appeared 10 times, 100 times more. Moreover, on the left and right of the Buddha Bodhi, countless Buddha kingdoms transformed into scattered lights and surged out. The Mahavairakana World Lord and the Dipankara Archaic Buddha World Lord's Buddha phantoms also appeared amidst the scattered lights. The merciful and joyful expressions on their faces filled the entire blessed land world's emotions, and they started surging out from the sky. Disciple respectfully welcomes Namo Dang Lai Maitreya to the Pure Land world. At this moment, Samantabhadra Bodhisattva's heart was finally at ease. He knelt in front of the Buddha Bodhi and pressed his palms together. At this moment, the Buddha Bodhi's entire body shone with golden radiance. Just like the Buddha radiance from before, the radiance behind his head displayed boundless divine abilities. Countless rivers of faith vaguely seeped out from the radiance, and countless Buddha kingdom phenomena also appeared amidst the radiance. The myriad Buddha diagram on the Buddha Bodhi's body transformed into billions of Buddha statues, which surrounded him. Each of them had their palms pressed together, and they were as pious as the Samantabhadra Bodhisattva. Namo Maitreya Buddha, Amitabhadra, Amitabhadra. The Buddha Bodhi chanted, and his appearance that was identical to Xuanzang's started to turn turbid and blurry. The swastika symbol between his brows gradually became clearer and condensed. Woo-woo. At this moment, a strange roar came from the shadows between the Buddha radiance. Strange demonic energy gushed out from the shadows like ghosts, and wherever it passed, the Buddha radiance and the Buddha shadow would turn pitch black. Even the goddesses had turned into rakshasas, and the celestial dragons had turned into demonic dragons. However, to everyone's surprise, as soon as the demon statues appeared, another demon clan's aura, which was not very powerful but even more bizarre, appeared. Wherever this demon clan's aura passed, all the demon chi retreated in defeat. Eowl. A series of ghostly wails and howls came from the void, as if someone had stepped on a dog's tail. As soon as this sound came out, all the demon statues disappeared completely. At the same time, the bizarre demon clan's aura also flashed and disappeared without a trace. Namo Maitreya Buddha. Samantabhadra Bodhisattva beamed with joy, and his heart was completely at ease. As the saying goes, Buddha is 1 foot tall, the devil is 10 feet tall. The golem's test for Buddhas was the most difficult, especially for a supreme Buddha like Maitreya. At the very least, the Tusita Buddha celestial demon would appear. When Samantabhadra Bodhisattva was trying to attain Buddhahood, he had been attacked by the celestial demon and almost destroyed his Buddhahood. Now that he thought about it, Samantabhadra Bodhisattva had a deep impression of it, so when Buddha Bodhi attained Buddhahood, his heart clenched. However, Samantabhadra Bodhisattva was still a little surprised. The demonic tribulation had disappeared too easily, and the sudden appearance of the demonic aura was even stranger. It was as if the celestial demon had been scared away by the appearance of the demonic aura. Dang! When the Buddha bell rang for the last time, the phenomena of attaining Buddhahood above the great snow mountain gradually disappeared. A rainbow bridge descended from the void and landed at Buddha Bodhi's feet. At this time, the swastika symbol between Buddha Bodhi's eyebrows had already formed, and the appearance of the Buddha radiance had also been revealed. To Xueqi's surprise, Buddha Bodhi's appearance was different from his and Zhang Luer's. It was actually the appearance of Namo Maitreya Buddha on the myriad Buddha diagram. Sandalwood. Buddha Bodhi's voice resounded in Xueqi's heart. When a Buddha Lord attains Buddhahood, it's the same as when a Taoist cultivator attains nascent soul. They can choose their original form or Buddha form. If they choose Buddha form, then their original form will be hidden. Even the Mahavairakana World Lord and the Dipankara Archaic Buddha wouldn't be able to discover their original form. Haha, good. Xueqi also laughed in his heart. In this way, even the 2 Buddha Lords wouldn't be able to know that Master is Ai's clone? That should be the case. However, this monk doesn't know if there will be an exception. Buddha Bodhi answered calmly. Don't worry about it. Xueqi instructed, if you can hide it, then hide it. If you can't hide it, then be honest. I won't do anything to harm your Buddhism. You don't have to worry. Namo Maitreya Buddha. Bodhi, who was already the Maitreya Buddha of the World Lord, chanted Buddha's name in his heart. I am your Buddha incarnation, and also one of your thousands of thoughts. Your thoughts are my thoughts. If you didn't have good intentions, how could you have refined my Maitreya Buddha of the World Lord's Buddha fruit? Xueqi smiled and didn't say anything. Buddha Lord. Samantabhadra Bodhisattva of Namo Maitreya said respectfully, in the Thunder Sound Temple, not only are the two world lords waiting for Buddha Lord, there are also other Buddha Lords, Bodhisattvas, Arhats, heavenly kings, and others waiting to congratulate Buddha Lord. In this disciple's opinion, we should return to the Thunder Sound Temple as soon as possible. Namo Maitreya Buddha. Namo Maitreya chanted Buddha's name and stepped onto the rainbow bridge condensed from Buddha's light. He put his palms together and said, Taoist Xiao, we will meet again if fate allows. Congratulations to Great Master for achieving Buddha fruit. Xueqi bowed and said, I respectfully send Great Master off. This disciple respectfully sends Namo Maitreya Buddha of the World Lord. Xuanzang didn't dare to be negligent and hurriedly bowed. Zhen Kong, Zhen Han, Zhen Feng, and the others also hurriedly bowed and sent them off. Instead, it was Devouring Heaven who raised his hand and called out. That. Buddha Lord Bodhisattva, is it okay for me to become your disciple? Unfortunately, before he could finish speaking, Namo Maitreya Buddha of the World Lord raised his hand and a ball of golden light flew out from his hand and landed in between Xuanzang's eyebrows. When that golden light came into contact with Xuanzang's skin, it immediately disappeared without a trace. Xuanzang was startled but his eyes revealed a knowing smile. He said, Namo Maitreya Buddha, many thanks for the Buddha Lord's blessing. If it's Buddhism, give it to Namo Maitreya Buddha of the World Lord. If it's Xuanzang, return it to Xuanzang. Namo Maitreya Buddha of the World Lord smiled slightly and said some inexplicable words. His body emitted Buddhist light and soared into the sky. Namo Maitreya Buddha Samantabhadra also stepped on a Buddhist lotus and followed beside him. In just a few breaths of time, the two disappeared. Damn it! Before Xuanzang and the others could get up, Devouring Heaven shouted, What the hell is going on? Is he still letting people become his disciple? Xueqi looked at Xuanzang with a smile and then looked at Devouring Heaven. He turned his head and scolded Yuan Tongtian, You don't have good eyesight. Hurry up and help your master down. Yes, master, please. Yuan Tongtian heard and hurriedly helped Xuanzang down from the sky. Devouring Heaven flew over and grabbed Xueqi and asked, Enlightened master, what do you think is going on? Am I still going to become his disciple? Did Bodhisattva stop you? Xueqi asked with interest. No. Maitreya Buddha didn't let you become his disciple. Xueqi asked again. Devouring Heaven squinted his small eyes and shook his head again. No. Xueqi stretched out his hand and shrugged. He smiled and said, Isn't that the case? They didn't stop you. Why can't you become his disciple? Master, please accept a bow from your disciple. Devouring Heaven kowtowed in front of the exquisite temple, making a small hole in the ground. Xuanzang's eyes showed a strange color. He looked at Devouring Heaven as if he was thinking about something. He then raised his head and asked Xueqi, Enlightened master, why is this? Why does this child insist on becoming my disciple? If he wants to cultivate, he can become Senior's disciple. Of course there's a secret behind it. Xueqi smiled and explained the matter of the Devouring the Heavens General Merits Atonement. In the end, he said, he entered Buddhism when he was young and served your previous life wholeheartedly. Now that he has the chance to help you seek the Sutra of Extreme Bliss, you should fulfill his wish. Actually, Xuanzang opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but he hesitated. He paused and said, Sutra seeking in extreme bliss is far from as simple as Enlightened Master thinks. It doesn't matter if it is simple or not. As long as you safely reach Longevity Town, this old man doesn't care about other complicated matters. Xueqi waved his hand and stopped Xuanzang's explanation. Chapter 4288. Xuanzang thought for a moment and said to Tunshan, Namo Amitba, since you are willing to become my disciple and preach Buddhism, then I am willing to accept you as my disciple. Thank you, Master. Tunshin was overjoyed and kowtowed. Xuanzang supported Tunshin and said solemnly, Don't worry, I still have a few words to say. If you can understand them, then you can agree. Okay. Tunshin agreed without hesitation. My name is Chun, and my disciples are all Zhen. Your Dharma name will be Zhenjie. Yes, Master. Master's path is far from being as smooth as you think. The sutra seeking in bliss is just the beginning. Master still has a long way to go. I'm afraid that even if I exhaust all my strength in this lifetime, I won't be able to reach the end. If you become my disciple, you'll have to suffer a lot. You have to understand. Disciple has committed too many sins. If I don't follow Master, how can I atone for those sins? The harder Master's path is, the happier disciple will be. What are you saying? Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Good if that's the case, then from today onwards, you are my disciple. Xuanzang smiled and touched Zhenjie's head. Namo Amitba. Zhenjie chanted Buddha's name sincerely, and a layer of Buddha's aura appeared around him. This. Xiaohua was a little surprised. Luo-er's cultivation is now completely gone. He's just an ordinary monk. The merit of praying for the scriptures in nirvana hasn't been realized yet. Could it be that Luo-er has other opportunities? Could there be something else with the golden aura that Namo Amitba gave him? Xiaohua was puzzled, but Xuanzang smiled and said to Zhenjie, Zhenjie, get up. Let me introduce you to my disciples. Dragon Horse Zhenfeng and Zhenhan were already waiting at the side. When they saw Xuanzang talking, they hurried over. Xuanzang pointed at Dragon Horse Zhenfeng and said, This is Zhenfeng. Greetings, Master. Dragon Horse Zhenfeng didn't dare to be negligent and hurriedly raised his head to pay his respects. However, he suddenly froze because Xuanzang didn't say who was the senior and who was the junior. Dragon Horse Zhenfeng hurriedly looked at Xuanzang. However, Xuanzang did not even look at him. He pointed at Zhenhan and said, This is Zhenhan. Greetings. Senior brother. Zhenhan was so cunning that she didn't even wait for Xuanzang to finish before hurriedly bowing. And Zhenjie nodded at Zhenhan, returning the greeting. This is Zhenkong, their eldest senior brother. Zhenkong hurriedly walked over. Chunzong pointed at Zhenkong and introduced him with a smile. That's right, Zhenkong. Zhenjie smiled and patted Zhenkong's shoulder. You have some skills. It's your fortune to be able to become Master's disciple. Hee hee. Zhenkong chuckled and didn't want to say anything more. Zhenkong. Xuanzang instructed. The matter here is over. Pack your things, and I will follow you down the mountain. Master. Zhenjie hurriedly asked. Shouldn't we rest here for a few more days? No. Xuanzang shook his head. The hidden immortal continent urgently needs the Mahayana Buddhist scriptures. The earlier we send them over, the earlier those bodhisattvas will be able to obtain our Buddha's light. Disciple understands. Seeing Zhenkong turn around to pack his things, Zhenjie had no choice but to follow him out of the temple. Xuanzang looked at Xiaohua and opened his mouth, wanting to say something. However, when the words reached his mouth, he didn't know how to speak. Xuanzang always had doubts about how he came to the Pure Land world and how he came to the small golden temple. However, when he saw Xiaohua, all of his doubts were answered. There was no need for him to ask anything. As for Xiaohua, he wanted to ask Xuanzang why he didn't want the Nanwu Maitreya Buddha fruit. However, when he thought of Xuanzang's determination, the golden light that the world-exalted Maitreya gave him before he left, and the phenomenon just now, he knew that Xuanzang must have some difficulties. Therefore, he decided not to ask. For a moment, the entire small exquisite temple became as lonely as snow. Outside the small exquisite temple, it was bustling with noise and excitement. When Zhenjie came out of the small exquisite temple, he pointed at Zhenkong and said, Brat, listen. You are their senior brother, not mine. In the future, you have to call me eldest senior brother. Otherwise, I will beat you to death with my rake. Zhenkong shrugged with an indifferent expression on his face. He casually said, No problem, eldest senior brother. His goal was to protect Xuanzang and complete Xiaohua's orders. He didn't care about being called eldest senior brother or second senior brother. And you. Zhen Jie pointed at Zhen Feng and Zhen Han and said fiercely, "The two of you have to call me eldest senior brother as well. Otherwise, you will be beaten to death by my rake." Yes, eldest senior brother. How could Zhen Feng and Zhen Han dare to talk back to Zhen Jie? After all, Zhen Jie's strength was comparable to Samantabhadra Bodhisattva. And not bad, Zhen Jie said proudly. He raised his hand and took the Buddhist scripture from Zhen Feng's back and threw it to Zhen Han. "In the future, you don't need to protect Master. You can carry this thing." Ah! Zhen Han was stunned. She caught the scripture and didn't know what to do. Zhen Jie glared and said coldly, "What? You don't want to?" That's right, that's right." Zhen Feng was overjoyed. "These scriptures can't be placed in a spatial pouch. You have to carry them on your shoulders. Later, I will find a pole for you in the exquisite temple. Humph, I don't need your help. I have." Zhen Han snorted and took out a weapon that looked like a crescent moon spade from her spatial pouch. She carried the scripture on her shoulders. Zhen Feng shouted happily, "Thank you, eldest senior brother. Thank you, eldest senior brother." "No need to thank me." Zhen Jie smiled and waved his hand. "In the future, you just have to carry me." "Ah, what? Eldest senior brother?" Zhen Feng was stunned. Unfortunately, before he could say anything, Zhen Jie landed on Zhen Feng's back and pressed down on him, causing Zhen Feng's hooves to tremble. "Motherfucker, get bigger." Zhen Jie felt that its lower body was uncomfortable, so it raised its hoof and slapped Zhen Feng's butt. Yes. Zhen Feng wanted to cry but couldn't. He really wanted to roar at Zhen Jie. "Damn it, I am the 10th prince of the Eastern Sea Dragon Palace." However, he was afraid that if he said that, he would be killed by Zhen Jie before the Eastern Sea Dragon Palace got the news. Huff huff. Dragon Horse Zhen Feng's back became bigger, and Zhen Jie felt extremely comfortable. In just a short moment, it actually started snoring. Hearing this snoring sound, Dragon Horse Zhen Feng was so scared that it didn't even dare to move, lest it startled this fiend. "Damn it, you deserve it." Zhen Han picked up the scripture and felt relaxed. Looking at Zhen Jie's huge figure pressing down on the dragon horse's back, he couldn't help but laugh in his heart. Zhen Kong only looked coldly at Zhen Jie for a few times before he focused his attention on that thin figure in the Linglong Temple. His previous hatred towards Xiao Hua had now turned into longing and respect. "Senior." In the exquisite temple, Xuanzang finally spoke. "Junior's origin is unknown. When Master saw Junior was staying in Shun River. Therefore, before Junior was accepted as Master's disciple, Junior was called Jiang Luer. In the future, Senior can call Junior Xuanzang or Junior Jiang Luer." Xiao Hua smiled and raised his hand slightly. However, he stopped after raising his hand a little and said, "All right, Luer, I understand. You and I have met by fate. If you have any problems, don't hesitate to find me." "Yes, disciple understands." Chunzong bowed. It wasn't the etiquette of the Buddhist sect. He said, "Disciple has a heavy responsibility on his shoulders. I don't dare to stay here any longer. I'll go down the mountain and rush to Longevity Town." "All right." Xiao Hua opened his mouth again. It seemed like he wanted to tell Jiang Luer about the technique of the crown on Yuan Tongtian's head. It also seemed like he wanted to tell Jiang Luer about Xiao Xianrui's longing for him. It also seemed like he wanted to tell Jiang Luer that the sutra-seeking nirvana was nothing but a farce. Xuanzang stood up with tears in his eyes. Silence was better than words. "Go." Finally, Xiao Hua opened his mouth. "Now that this old man has returned, you can do whatever you want. Yes." Chunzong didn't say anything else. He turned around and walked out of the Linglong Temple. Facing the dragon horse Zhen Feng's resentful gaze, Chunzong acted as if he didn't hear it. Holding his staff, he walked down the mountain path. Although it was the same path up and down the mountain, Chunzong believed that the scenery down the mountain would be different. "Junior thanks spiritual master for saving my life." Zhen Kong walked at the back. He looked back at Xiao Hua, who was slowly walking out of the Linglong Temple, and knelt on the ground again. "And go." Xiao Hua waved his hand and helped Zhen Kong up. He took out some pills from his bosom and handed them to Zhen Kong. "These are some pills. Take them. Also, I'll keep the magic wand for you. When you come back from the Longevity Town, you can come and find me." "Many thanks, Senior. Zhen Kong finally smiled. He jumped and chased after Chun Zong. This fire ape has changed a lot. It's much more pleasing to the eye than before. Thunderbolt's spiritual master said. Xiaohua also sighed. AI, that's right. Not only can humans change, demons can also change. Previously, I only wanted to punish this guy. In order to let him protect Luer, I taught him a technique. Who would have thought that he was actually a filial demon who couldn't forget everything that happened in the illusion? It's really beyond Ai's expectations. There are many unexpected things. Thunderbolt's spiritual master said with a smile. Not only Yuan Tong Tian, there's also Zhang Luer. He actually abandoned the Buddha fruit that he cultivated for 9 lifetimes. What is he planning in his heart? I'm not sure. Perhaps Maitreya Buddha would know about this matter. Xiaohua shook his head. There must be some secret within that ball of golden light. When I left, I asked him. Thunderbolt's spiritual master said, the revered one also doesn't know what's within the golden light. It's just that when Luer rejected the Buddha fruit, this golden light strangely emerged from the remains of the ancient Xili. Furthermore, the revered one's Buddha consciousness and other divine abilities were also unable to probe it. When Luer said if it's Chun Zong, then return it to Chun Zong, this golden light was eager to give it a try. The revered one knew that this golden light was left behind by Namo Maitreya Buddha in his previous life. Chapter 4289. I hope Luer's choice is correct. At this moment, what else could Xiaohua say? He could only bless Chun Zong. Also, Lightning Immortal raised his hand and the Son of Heaven and Earth Pagoda appeared in his hand. Xiaohua asked curiously, fellow Taoist once you has no use for this thing. Didn't you give it to Fu Jiwen? Lightning Immortal rolled his eyes and said, I naturally gave it to Fu Jiwen. However, when Fu Jiwen was refining it, he found something inside. What is it? Xiaohua asked curiously. Is this what you meant by unexpected? Of course. Lightning Immortal's hand shook and a golden light flew out from the Son of Heaven and Earth Pagoda. Xiaohua reached out and grabbed it. It was in the shape of a key. This is... Xiaohua's figure shook. He hastily waved his hand and took out the other key he obtained from the forgotten realm of the Dragon Island. Sure enough, these 2 keys were very similar. Apart from the dragon patterns, they were practically identical. Damn, this thing is indeed somewhat interesting. Xiaohua took the 2 keys and narrowed his eyes. He looked at Lightning Immortal and said, one of them fell into the space crack from the dragon field. The other one is in the hands of Venerable Dragon God. This is probably the key to a secret place in the dragon field or even the dragon world, right? Who knows? Lightning Immortal shrugged. I have no use for it. Only fellow Taoist is useful. Forget it. Let's talk about this in the future. Xiaohua clapped his hands and said with a smile, in the end, this world's banquet will come to an end. Maitreya Buddha has attained enlightenment in the exquisite temple of the Great Snow Mountain. Today's banquet has already ended. It's time for us to leave. As for the future, I'm afraid there will be many Buddhas coming to pay their respects. This place will not be peaceful. Indeed. This place is no longer suitable for building a teleportation formation. The Thunderbolt Immortal knew what Xiaohua was talking about. He nodded in agreement and looked up at the sky. At this moment, all the phenomena in the sky had disappeared. However, as soon as the Buddhist kingdom phenomenon disappeared, a strange green-red dark cloud that was tens of thousands of miles in size appeared in the sky. These dark clouds seemed to be in the void, but also seemed to be in the clouds. They could not be seen clearly. However, an aura more solid than a mountain rock came out from the dark clouds. It transcended space and landed on Lightning Immortal's heart. After the Thunderbolt Immortal finished speaking, he probed, fellow Taoist, can you still hold on? The Thunderclap Immortal's words were rarely abrupt, so it was impossible for others to know. However, Xiaohua raised his head as if nothing had happened. He nodded and said, if it was before, perhaps I would be somewhat flustered. But now, I can still suppress it. All right. The Thunderbolt Immortal nodded, but he still warned, even so, fellow Taoist, you must not be too careless. All right, I understand. Xiaohua nodded. Standing in the air above the snowy mountain, He glanced at the master and disciples who were squirming on the mountain path like ants. He said in a low voice, after sending them away, "We still have to send one more person away." Who? The Thunderbolt Immortal was taken aback. However, he immediately understood and nodded. Ah, that's right. In the end, it was time for him to leave. Send him away, I'll hide for a while. As he spoke, Xueqi took out the Kunlun mirror. Using his magic power, he invited Sun Jian out from Shenhua continent, while the Thunderbolt Immortal returned to Shenhua continent. The moment Sun Jian landed in the air, he immediately became alert. He raised his head to look at the sky in astonishment, then bowed and said, "Greetings, spiritual master Xiao." No need to be so polite. Xueqi hurriedly raised his hand to help Sun Jian up. He said with a hint of loneliness, "In the future when you see I, just call me fellow Taoist." Sun Jian was taken aback. He instantly understood the meaning of Xueqi's words. He hurriedly released his divine sense to explore the surroundings. However, after a moment, he was somewhat bewildered. He looked at Xueqi with a hint of doubt in his eyes. "Spiritual master, this is..." Xueqi raised his hand and pointed to the sky. He smiled and said, "Could it be that General Sun has forgotten? Back then when I first met you, it was in the void crack above the Pure Land world." "I understand." When Sun Jian heard about the Pure Land world, he couldn't help but feel a burst of excitement. When he heard that this was the place where he first met Xueqi, he sighed in his heart. When they met that day, Xueqi had only just reached the 4th grade of origin energy. Sun Jian's strength firmly suppressed Xueqi's. Now that they met again in the same place, he couldn't even compare to Xueqi's back. However, when he thought about his current cultivation, Sun Jian felt grateful to Xueqi. If it weren't for Xueqi, how could he come back alive? How could he reach the peak of the 8th grade of origin energy? Suddenly, Sun Jian was shocked again. He hurriedly asked, "What's the current time in the 3 continents?" "General Sun doesn't need to worry." Xueqi smiled and said, "It's only been 200 years since we were forced into the heavenly prison." Good. When Sun Jian heard this, a cold light flashed in his eyes. He bowed and said, "Spiritual master, please rest assured. I will definitely find out the true face of Sun Hao and take revenge for that day." Hee. There's no need to rush the matter of revenge. Xueqi waved his hand and said, "Your life is the most important. With your current strength, you may not be Sun Hao's opponent. You should first think of a plan to advance and retreat." There's no need for spiritual master to worry about this. Sun Jian nodded. "Although I disdain this path, it doesn't mean I don't know how to do it. If someone dares to covet the Immortal Emperor's throne, I will definitely protect the Immortal Emperor by any means necessary." Speaking up to here, Sun Jian probed again and asked, "I wonder what spiritual master plans to do? If possible, can spiritual master follow me to the Immortal Palace? With spiritual master's methods, you must be an honored guest of the Immortal Palace." Xueqi looked at Sun Jian with a smile that wasn't a smile and said, "General can decide for the Immortal Emperor that I am an honored guest and not a prisoner?" Sun Jian's face was a little embarrassed. He smiled and said, "Spiritual master's view of the Immortal Emperor is too narrow. The Immortal Emperor is definitely not the muddle-headed emperor that the scholarly cultivators speak of. General isn't the Immortal Emperor. How would you know what the Immortal Emperor thinks?" Xueqi waved his hand and said, "One shouldn't have the heart to harm others, but one must have the heart to guard against others. This Xiao can't not be on guard. Moreover, if this Xiao has a grudge with the Immortal Emperor, I'm afraid I won't be able to meet General. If that's the case, it's better not to meet. You and I have traveled in the upper realm and have experienced life and death together. I believe in General's character. If you have any problems, you can come find me. If it's inconvenient for the Immortal Emperor to make a move, this Xiao won't be afraid of anything." Junior thanks Spiritual Master for believing in me. Sun Jian knew that Xueqi was speaking from the bottom of his heart and also knew what kind of promise Xueqi needed. He bowed and said, "Junior's life and cultivation were given by Senior. Junior will definitely not disappoint Senior. Of course, Junior is a subject of the Immortal Palace and often has no choice. Therefore, Junior will definitely keep Senior's secret. Junior will definitely keep it a secret. As for other things, Junior can't not report to the Immortal Emperor truthfully. I hope Spiritual Master can understand. Haha, good. You know more about these things than this Xiao. Xiao Hua flicked his sleeve and helped Sun Jian up. You can decide for yourself. However, to be honest, the heavenly prison is not a place that ordinary cultivators can go. Immortal Emperor Go Chan and the Vairocana revered world sage can't go. If they aren't afraid of death, they can send people in. Spiritual Master must be joking. Sun Jian bitterly smiled and said, What is the heavenly prison? How could Junior not know? Even if the Immortal Emperor knew about this, he would definitely not leak it. On the contrary, Spiritual Master. You are now the top cultivator of the 3 continents. Spiritual Master is a Dao cultivator, so you will definitely have some connections with my Immortal Palace. I really hope that the disciples of the Fortune Gate can coexist peacefully with the Immortal Palace in the future. Chapter 4290. Haha, don't worry. Xiao Hua laughed. As long as this old man is in charge of the Fortune Gate will not be the Immortal Palace's enemy. If this old man isn't around, then it's not something this old man can worry about. Junior understands. After getting Xiao Hua's promise, Sun Jian once again respectfully saluted and said, There are spatial passages in other parts of the Pure Land that lead to the Immortal Palace. 200 years shouldn't have changed too much. However, I don't know the spatial tunnel to the hidden Immortal Continent. If you return to the soaring Dragon Mountain Range, I'm afraid it will be inconvenient. Your grandmother. Xiao Hua helplessly shook his head. You even know about the soaring Dragon Mountain Range. What other secrets can my Fortune Gate hide from you? What I know and what the Immortal Palace knows are 2 different things. Sun Jian smiled and answered without hesitation. Forget it. Xiao Hua waved his hand. I want to go to the 1,000 Demons Sacred Realm, so I won't be returning to the hidden Immortal Continent for now. 1,000 Demons Sacred Realm? Sun Wu frowned, thought for a moment, and said, My Immortal Palace has a spatial passageway that leads to the 1,000 Demons Sacred Realm. If Senior is willing to go to the Immortal Palace, there's no need to mention this matter again. This old man doesn't want to make things difficult for you. Xiao Hua waved his hand. At worst, this old man will directly fly over the North and South Seas. When Sun Jian heard that, his brows relaxed and he said with a smile, That's not necessary. As far as I know, there is a space teleportation formation between the South Sea Dragon Palace and the North Sea Dragon Palace. You only need to go to the South Sea, and you can go directly to the North Sea Dragon Palace from the South Sea Dragon Palace. North Sea Dragon Palace? Xiao Hua pinched his chin and said somewhat meaningfully, This old man had once offended the North Sea Dragon Palace's 7th prince. Haha, with Senior's strength, as long as you don't offend the Dragon King of the North Sea Dragon Palace, a few princes are nothing. Sun Jian smiled, then took out a jade eye from his bosom and respectfully handed it over to Xiao Hua. This is the location of the Dragon Palace of the 4 Seas. There are also some relatively secret records. Senior, please take it. Junior does not have a deep relationship with the Dragon Palace of the 4 Seas. Junior's token may be useful, but compared to Senior's strength, Junior's token is only the light of autumn fireflies. I dare not take it out and embarrass myself. And General Sun is considerate. Xiao Hua took the jade eyes and looked at it, then put it away. This Junior will take his leave. Sun Jian bowed again, asking, May I ask if Junior can meet the Fortune Gate's junior brothers again? Of course. Xiao Hua took out the Kunlun mirror, and a beam of light descended, sucking Sun Jian into it. After a while, Sun Jian was released from the Shanhua continent. At this time, Sun Jian had already put aside his feelings for Xiao Hua, and he bowed to bid farewell to Xiao Hua. He then urged the auspicious cloud to fly somewhere. The Thunderbolt Immortal also came out from Shanhua continent. He looked worriedly in the direction Sun Wu flew in and asked, Maitreya Buddha is now a Buddha. No one knows his true form except for us. But fellow Taoist, if you let Sun Jian out of the Great Snow Mountain, wouldn't you be giving him something to use against you? Hee, how can there be an impenetrable wall in this world? If he was worried about Sun Jian, he might as well not let him out. As long as he was let out, there was a possibility that the information would be leaked. Sun Jian is a loyal and righteous person, and he has a good relationship with us Fortune Gate disciples. How can we not give him freedom? Xiaohua said with a smile. Moreover, even if the Mahavairakana revered one wants to hide any karma of the 3 continents, it's impossible for him to do it flawlessly. Moreover, the Maitreya Buddha revered one's attainment of the fruit is open and aboveboard. Why should we be afraid of revealing any clues? Haha, that's true. We have no ulterior motives. What are we afraid of? The Thunderbolt Immortal laughed and said, however, Sun Jian's words reminded I of something. Since we have returned to the 3 continents, we should plan for the future. Although we are not afraid of the Immortal Palace, if the Immortal Palace makes a move, we can't not be on guard. Okay. Xiaohua nodded. Let's bury a chess piece in the Pure Land world first. Hee, I have the same idea. The Thunderbolt Immortal chuckled and followed Xiaohua. The 2 of them flew for several days and saw a place with beautiful scenery. Within the range of their divine senses, there were few signs of human habitation. The 2 of them looked at each other, and there was a meaningful smile in their eyes. Without needing Xiaohua to do anything, the Thunderbolt Immortal pulled out 30,000 Fortune Gate disciples from the Shanhua mainland and gave them some instructions. There was no need for Xiaohua and the Thunderbolt Immortal to say anything, and the 30,000 disciples began to set up the formation. The disciples who could come out from the Shanhua mainland were all nascent soul cultivators and above, and each of them had the strength to establish a country in the 3 continents. Among the 30,000 disciples, the one with the highest cultivation had already reached the 6th grade, the Void Refinement Realm. Their strength was enough to make Xiaohua feel reassured. Therefore, after setting up the formation, Xiaohua did not delay. He took out the Kunlun mirror and circulated his magic power to release Fu Jiwen and the other disciples. The Fortune Gate disciples had already learned from Sun Jian that they had returned to the 3 continents. When they came out, their faces were filled with joy. After the disciples greeted each other, each of them took a deep breath, as if the air in the 3 continents was fresh and warm. Xiaohua smiled and said, after several twists and turns, Master has finally brought all of you back safely. I believe General Sun has already told all of you that it has only been 200 years since we left. What we have experienced this time is truly unimaginable. Just from the eyes of others, your strength has indeed increased by an unimaginable amount. This is all thanks to Master. Fu Jiwen and Lu Yi were the first to bow and answer. Seeing that the other disciples were about to bow and thank Xiaohua, Xiaohua hurriedly waved his hand and said, you don't need to be so polite. Master is your master. If there are any benefits, I will naturally leave them for all of you. Moreover, if you follow Master out, other than opportunities, there will also be calamities. All of you have passed the test of time, which proves that Master has chosen all of you correctly. Master is very comforted. Master called all of you out today to prepare for your return to the hidden immortal mainland, to the soaring Dragon Mountain Range's Fortune Gate. However, before I let all of you go back, Master wants to hear your thoughts. What plans do you have for the future? Lu Yi and Yu Zhongquan had long been the heads of a family. How could they not understand what Xiaohua was thinking? The 2 of them glanced at each other, bowed, and said, Master should know our temperament, but please rest assured. In the past 200 years, Senior Brother Xiong, Senior Brother Li, and Senior Brother Lan have contributed a lot to the soaring Dragon Mountain Range's Fortune Gate. Although we are fortunate enough to have higher cultivation than our 3 senior brothers, we will not covet some of the Fortune Gate's positions. Wang Bianfei smiled and said, other than following Master to cultivate, disciple doesn't care about anything else. Master can rest assured. Yuanya looked at Xiaohua without any intention to speak. Fu Jiwen also smiled and said, Master, disciple is a Confucian cultivator. We won't fight for power with Senior Brother Xiong and the others. You can rest assured. Actually, Xiaohua nodded, looking at his disciples and said with a smile, this old master knows your temperament, so I'm very relieved. However, it is precisely because you are Confucian cultivators, Buddhist sects, Tao sects, sword cultivators, and the dragon tribe that Master is a little worried. The 3 mainlands' forces are intertwined, and you might be used by them. For example, Jiang Hong, if the Heavenly Abode's River Dragon tribe is in trouble and asks for your help, how can Lu Yi not help? Lu Yi looked at Jiang Hong, and both of them showed a difficult expression. Master. Fu Jiwen smiled and said, disciple and the others are in the 3 mainlands. It is inevitable that some karma will arise. It is impossible to remain untainted. Isn't Master often troubled by these matters? Disciple can't guarantee that we won't be involved in the three mainlands' grievances, but Disciple can guarantee that we will put the Fortune Gate's interests first. Yes, Disciple will definitely put the Fortune Gate's interests first. All the disciples answered in unison. Xiao Hua nodded with satisfaction, then added, as long as you all have this intention, Master can rest assured. Also, I want to say that this experience is unprecedented. You guys have experienced the ruins and the primeval wasteland continent. I wonder how you guys feel about it. If you are not strong enough, it's better not to go. Yuanya answered honestly. Wang Bianfei laughed and said, there are so many treasures in the upper realm. Disciple regrets not taking a few more cosmos bags. If Master has any extra, why don't you give Disciple some more? Haha. All the disciples burst into laughter. Forget about the ruins, the desolate mainland was really full of treasures, so many that they were dazzled. What Wang Bianfei said was definitely what they were thinking. When everyone stopped laughing, Fu Jiwen's heart suddenly moved. Looking at Xiao Hua's half-smile, he seemed to have understood something. He bowed and said, Master, Disciple has never been to the ruins and desolate mainland, so Disciple didn't know what the upper realm was like, and didn't have much confidence in Disciple's cultivation. Now that Disciple has seen the upper realm, Disciple knows how vast it is, and has returned to the three mainlands. Although this is Disciple's hometown, Disciple already feels that this place is too narrow. Disciple already has a goal in Disciple's cultivation, and Disciple is confident that Disciple will reach this goal. Disciple will not be burdened by the three mainlands' worldly affairs and ruin Disciple's foundation. Jiwen is right. Do you all understand? Xiao Hua nodded, and his gaze was like a bolt of lightning as he looked at everyone. Lu Yi and the others came to a sudden understanding when they heard this, and they finally understood what Xiao Hua wanted to say. All of them bowed and answered. Don't worry, Master. Disciple completely understands. Otherwise, wouldn't this trip to the upper dimensions have been wasted? With this experiential training, Disciple's vision should be much higher than the three mainlands' cultivators. Xiao Hua said, your cultivation will definitely surpass the majority of the three mainlands' cultivators. Therefore, Master doesn't want to see Disciple's cultivation delay because of some worldly affairs. Of course, Disciple's cultivation isn't a smooth sailing matter. No matter if it's in the ruins, desolate mainland, or the three mainlands, Disciple and the others still have a lot of distractions. However, Disciple's goal must be firm. Chapter 4291. Actually, it's not just you, even Master has a hard time getting out of the quagmire of these mundane affairs. Although cultivation is a personal matter, it is also a sect's matter. For the Fortune Gate, for the Tao sect, Master has to leave more means. The mountain range under your feet, and the busy disciples, is also a Fortune Gate that Master wants to build in the Pure Land. In the future, Master will also establish a sect in the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm, and even other places. Hee hee. Fu Jiwen laughed. With the number of Fortune Gate disciples on the Shenhua continent, it's possible to build 10 more Fortune Gates. Xiao Hua rolled his eyes at Fu Jiwen and said, do you think Master is willing to build so many sects? If possible, Master would rather you cultivate in the Shenhua continent and not come out. But in reality, you will definitely be like this old man in the future, reaching a bottleneck in your cultivation and having no choice but to ascend to the immortal world. Master also has to consider for you as soon as possible. Lu Yi and the others naturally understood Xiao Hua's painstaking efforts and bowed. Subsequently, Xiao Hua left Jiang Hong and Lu Yi behind. The other disciples each led 2,000 disciples back to the soaring Dragon Mountain range on the hidden immortal continent to support the Fortune Gate led by Xueqi and the other disciples. However, when the disciples were flying away, Yuanya was a little bashful and actually whispered to the disciples he led to leave first. He wanted to return to the Shenhua continent first. Xiao Hua glanced at Yuanya in bewilderment. He did not understand what was going on. Even the Thunderbolt Immortal was bewildered. However, Xiao Hua did not say anything. He shook the Kunlun mirror and collected Yuanya. Then, Yu Zhongquan and the others left first. When Jiang Hong and Lu Yi saw that Xiao Hua had left them behind, they couldn't help but feel anxious. After Yu Zhongquan and the others left, they hurriedly knelt in the air and begged for forgiveness. Master, Disciple knows his mistake. Please punish master. And Xiaohua didn't know what they were talking about, but his face was still as calm as water. He asked indifferently, since you know, then tell me, what did you do wrong? Lu Yi knew Xiaohua's temper, and without waiting for Zhang Hong to speak, he had already explained the reason. It turned out that the Yu clan and the Lu clan of Shenhua continent already had some grudges. In order to compete for the title of the #1 aristocratic clan of Shenhua continent, they had fought countless times. Previously, Lu Yi and Yu Zhongquan had also mentioned this matter to Xiaohua, but Xiaohua didn't care. He only felt that since it was a place with people, there would be conflicts. Although the ancestors of the Yu family and the Lu family were martial brothers, with so many branches and leaves in the family, it was inevitable that their closeness to each other would deteriorate. Fighting was also inevitable, as long as it wasn't too excessive. This time, Lu Yi's report caused Xiaohua's expression to change again. This was because a descendant of the dragon clan of the Lu clan had been defeated by a disciple of the Yu clan because of his bravery. Moreover, this descendant of the dragon clan didn't openly challenge him again. Instead, he used poison to poison this disciple and nearly 100 people from the Yu clan's side branches to death. Although the actions of the dragon clan's descendants were very secretive, there were no secrets in this world. After the truth was found out by the other branches of the Yu clan, they gathered nearly 1,000 people to attack the Lu clan, a branch of the dragon clan. The two clans engaged in a chaotic battle, and another 400 people were killed or injured. In the end, this matter alarmed Yu Zhongquan and Lu Yi. The two of them used thunderous means to suppress this chaotic battle, and even sentenced the descendant of the dragon clan to death. Of course, this matter was suppressed, but the rift between the two clans seemed to be getting bigger and bigger. Yu Zhongquan and Lu Yi didn't dare to report this matter to Xiaohua. They wanted to wait until the Thunderbolt Immortal was in a good mood to tell him first, then report to Xiaohua. But today, Xiaohua actually returned to the 3 continents and even sent out a group of disciples, leaving Lu Yi and his wife alone. Lu Yi had a guilty conscience and immediately confessed. Hearing this, Xiaohua's face was already ashen. However, just as he was about to get angry, the Thunderbolt Immortal smiled and transmitted a message. Fellow Taoist, don't forget about the heavenly demon. Similarly, don't forget about the fight between the Taoist and Confucian cultivators on the hidden immortal continent. Don't forget about the crushing and killing between the aristocratic families of Confucian cultivators. Alas! Xiaohua sighed. He understood what the Thunderbolt Immortal meant. If there were no humans on the Shenhua continent, then it would be fine. But since there were humans, how could there be no fighting and killing? Moreover, he also put the heavenly demon into the space? Wait for me to get up. Xiaohua flicked his sleeves and helped the two of them up. He said, since you two have already dealt with this matter, Master won't say anything else. The population of the Shenhua continent is already large enough, and our Fortune Gate also has countless disciples. Master can't manage your descendants, but you two are absolutely forbidden from killing each other within the next 3 generations. Seeing this, Zhang Hong hurriedly replied, Master, please don't worry about this. The relationship between us senior and junior brothers is very good. There definitely won't be any gap between us. On the Shenhua continent, other than the Lu family and the Yu family, are there any other families? Xiaohua slightly nodded and asked. There are no other families among this disciple's senior and junior brothers, and there are a few among the 3rd and 4th generation disciples, but they are all useless. Zhang Hong replied, knowing everything like the back of her hand. Then let's support some. Xiaohua reminded in a bad mood, in such a big Shenhua continent, there are only 2 aristocratic families playing around. Isn't it too lonely? Yes, this disciple understands. Zhang Hong was stunned. She didn't expect Xiaohua to give such an order. However, Xiaohua's next sentence reminded her, if you don't know what to do, go and ask your martial uncle Wen Chu. Confucian cultivators are very good at forming alliances, and even sowing discord is very good. Yes. Zhang Hong lowered her head and answered. Other than this, Master has another matter that I might need the 2 of you. That's why I asked you to stay. Xiaohua finally said. You two return to the Shenhua continent and wait there. Subsequently, Xiaohua took out the Kunlun mirror and sent Zhang Hong and Lu Yi into the space. Fellow Taoist. After receiving the 2, Xueqi was a little impatient and asked the Thunderbolt Master, "The development of the matter seems to be out of my control." Hee, fellow Taoist doesn't stay in the space often, so you don't know about these things. The Thunderbolt Master laughed and said, "In fact, this kind of thing happens every day on the Shenhua continent. At first, I was just as confused as you were, but as I watched, I began to realize something. The so-called control doesn't mean you can control everything in the space, but you can control the general trend and direction of the space. As long as there is no world-ending disaster, no large-scale blood sacrifice, and so on, it's fine. We are not gods, so it's impossible for us to control all the details. Oh, of course, perhaps in the future, when fellow Taoist divine ability reaches a certain level, you can also control such details, then we'll talk about it again." Development is always a trend. Xueqi nodded. If the space was the same as before, with only spiritual herbs and no people, you and I wouldn't have so many opportunities, and neither of us would be satisfied. The space will always develop, and our strength must also change and improve accordingly. Fellow Taoist, please work hard. The Thunderbolt Master smiled and said, "The current space is no longer the space I know. Therefore, fellow Taoist must also work hard." Xueqi replied with a smile, then looked at the busy Fortune Gate disciples, and the smile on his face gradually faded. He let out a long sigh and fell silent. Why is fellow Taoist sighing? The Thunderbolt Master was puzzled. Naturally, it's because of the future of the Fortune Gate disciples in the space. Xueqi said in a low voice, "When the time comes, we can't send all of them from Shenhua continent to hidden immortal continent, right? Moreover, there are so many people on Shenhua continent, I can't send all of them out." When fellow Taoist ascends? The Thunderbolt Master asked. Yes. Xueqi nodded. Why can't it be like now? The Thunderbolt Master was still confused. Just stay on Shenhua continent with them. On Shenhua continent. I'm afraid that without ascension, it will affect their cultivation. Xueqi replied, moreover, we have never been to the immortal world. Who knows what it's like? Since there are no problems in the higher realms, what's the problem in the immortal world? Speaking of which, I still don't want to take the risk if I'm not confident. So you want to expand the Fortune Gate in the 3 continents? Yes, it's a backup plan, just in case. It's really troublesome. The Thunderbolt Master smiled bitterly. As the saying goes, success depends on space, failure depends on space. I don't need to think about this matter. I should go and set up the transmission array. All right. While speaking, Xueqi brings the Thunderbolt Venerable and flies in another direction. After flying for tens of thousands of miles, Xueqi saw a place with clear mountains and clear water. He released his Buddhist awareness and looked around for a long time before asking, "Fellow Taoist Thunderbolt, what do you think of this place?" "And very good." The Thunderbolt Master also released his divine sense and looked around before saying, "This place is more secluded. It's the most suitable place to set up a transmission array." After saying that, the Thunderbolt Master raised his head and looked at the sky again. He saw that the dark red clouds above the snowy mountain had already moved here with the 2 of them. The dark clouds had already become somewhat transparent, and streaks of dragon-like lightning gradually appeared. "Fellow Taoist, do you need I to help you?" The Thunderbolt Master asked worriedly. There's no need. If I don't want to attract the Thunder Sound Temple's attention, I can release my divine sense now. Xueqi said nonchalantly, "It won't be too late to deal with this matter after I arrive at a safe place." After saying that, Xueqi activated his escape technique and the 2 of them flew towards the depths of the earth. When they arrived at a certain place, Xueqi released his puppets and ordered them to open up space. Xueqi then handed the Grand Cosmos teleportation token to the Thunderbolt Master and said, "I'll have to trouble fellow Taoist to set up the transmission array here. This Grand Cosmos teleportation token has the Black Wind Ridge's transmission array's divine sense mark. Fellow Taoist can just set up the transmission array between the 2 continents. Rest assured, fellow Taoist, I can even set up a transmission array that can pass through the barrier between the 2 continents. This simple transmission array between the 2 continents is simply a piece of cake for me." The Thunderbolt Master bragged a little as he received the Grand Cosmos teleportation token. Chapter 4292. How could Xiao Hua not know the pride in the Thunderbolt Immortal's heart? However, he didn't point it out. He only smiled and said, "Then fellow Taoist can build a teleportation formation here first. Once it's done, head to the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm. Of course, if fellow Taoist can sense space, feel free to enter it first." "Oh? Why are you going to the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm, fellow Taoist?" Taoist Thunderbolt was rather puzzled. Could it be that there's something wrong with that five-colored demon? Not bad. Xiao Hua nodded. That day, I wanted to search the soul of that five-colored monster. Unfortunately, he was one step ahead of me and self-destructed. I couldn't get too many things. However, from the information I've obtained, there seems to be a force in the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm that's interested in me. I have no choice but to go take a look. Fellow Taoist, aren't you going back to the Soaring Dragon Mountain Range first? The Thunderbolt Immortal was even more baffled. Previously, when you asked Fujiwen and the others to return to the hidden Immortal Continent, I thought that you wanted to stay in the Pure Land world and wait for I to build the teleportation array. Who knew that you were actually going to the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm? But how long would it take to fly to the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm? Why don't we wait for I to finish building the teleportation passageway? Fellow Taoist, you can go to Black Wind Ridge through the teleportation passageway before heading to the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm from there. No need. Xiao Hua says with a mysterious smile. I still have some matters to attend to in the South Sea Dragon Palace. Furthermore, Sun Jian has already informed I that there is a teleportation channel between the South Sea Dragon Palace and the North Sea Dragon Palace. Fellow Taoist, have you lost your mind? The Thunderbolt Immortal was greatly alarmed. Fellow Taoist, you have greatly offended the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas in the Stacked Jade Legacy Realm. Aren't you throwing yourself into a trap by going there? Aren't you afraid that they'll make a move? That was then and this is now. Xiao Hua said with a smile. Would the current Xiao still fear the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas? It's not a matter of whether I'm afraid or not. You don't have to be afraid in other places, but in the Dragon Palace, you have to be careful, right? In my opinion, if there's nothing urgent, it's better not to go near the Dragon Palace. The Thunder Immortal advised seriously. I don't seem to have any grudges with the Southern Sea Dragon Palace. Xiao Hua smiled and said, I will go and see their attitude first before making a decision. Seeing that Xiao Hua had already made up his mind, the Thunderbolt Taoist didn't continue to persuade him. He said, then fellow Taoist should go first. After I finish building the teleportation formation, I'll also rush over to give you a hand. All right. Xiao Hua nodded. After a long while, when the puppet had finished digging the space, Xiao Hua cupped his hands towards the Thunderbolt Immortal and flew out of the ground towards the South Sea. Xiao Hua soared into the sky and immediately used the Thunderclap Ninth Heaven. His flying speed became even faster, and when the surrounding scenery started to blur, pieces of light started to appear before Xiao Hua's eyes. Xiao Hua understood that he would soon be able to enter a speed that surpassed the lightning escape. Just as Xiao Hua's body began to show signs of dispersing, Shua! A light sound rang out. The laws of heaven and earth landed on Xiao Hua's body and forcefully stopped it from dispersing. The light and shadows around Xiao Hua revealed their original appearance. Xiao Hua frowned. A bad feeling emerged in his heart and he increased his speed again. After doing this several times, Xiao Hua still couldn't reach the state he was in the Great Desolate Continent. Xiao Hua unconsciously understood and thought to himself, damn it, it seems that in these three continents, the lightning escape technique should be the end of all escape techniques. The laws of heaven and earth don't allow escape techniques that surpass this speed to appear. It's absolutely impossible for me to cultivate the light escape technique in the cultivation world. However, my current 5-element escape technique is still lacking the wind escape technique to reach the high level. Moreover, the 5-element origin is still lacking the water origin. Even the wood origin and wind origin are not completely fused together because the time I obtain them is too short. Perhaps after I've perfected all of this, I'll try the feeling of being enveloped in light again. Finished thinking, Xiao Hua didn't try anymore and urged the Thunderclap Ninth Heaven to fly towards the South Sea. Although he still hadn't reached the realm of being enveloped in light, his lightning escape technique had already surpassed the previous one. When the Thunderclap Ninth Heaven, there was no longer the sound of thunder that previously resounded through the sky. Only lightning could be seen flashing and his figure instantly traveled 1,000 li high up in the sky, The green-red transparent cloud was not much slower than Xueqi as it chased after him. Not to mention Xueqi rushing towards the South Sea Dragon Palace, the Maitreya Buddha of the world stepped on a rainbow bridge and crossed the void. Seeing the source of the Buddhist light, many wonderful sounds appeared one after another, and many Sanskrit chants sounded. In the distance, there seemed to be an incomparably huge temple emitting Buddhist light that was even more vast than the sea. The Maitreya Buddha of the world knew that this was the Lain Temple of the Three Continents. The end of the rainbow bridge was below the steps of the temple. However, that temple was completely composed of Buddhist light. There were no Buddha sons or Buddhist protectors. Even where the Maitreya Buddha of the world's gaze fell, that temple would twist and rotate like falling leaves in the sky. When the Maitreya Buddha of the world turned his head to look at Samantabhadra Bodhisattva beside him, there was also no trace of him. It was as if Samantabhadra Bodhisattva had never existed. The Maitreya Buddha of the world's Buddhist sense swept through the surrounding space again, and discovered that this space was filled with strange fine lines. It was like a layer of seal that separated the space of the Lain temple from the surroundings. Moreover, the Maitreya Buddha of the world felt that his golden body was like nothingness in this space. That originally condensed Buddhist lotus had layers of wind-blown wrinkles. Strange. The Maitreya Buddha of the world was somewhat bewildered. However, he still lifted his foot and landed on the steps of the Lain temple. Namantabhadra Bodhisattva. Namantabhadra Bodhisattva. Waves of Buddhist chants resounded from the Lain temple. At the same time, the steps condensed from Buddhist light under the Maitreya Buddha of the world's feet began to rotate. They turned into golden sutra runes in the shape of a swastika. It actually formed a huge whirlpool, sucking the Maitreya Buddha of the world into the space below the Lain temple. The Maitreya Buddha of the world felt that layers of Buddhist visions flashed past his eyes. Thousands of golden sutra runes intertwined together to form a world that resembled a spider web. When his eyes suddenly lit up, a familiar yet strange voice resounded. Amitba. Welcome back, junior apprentice brother. When the Maitreya Buddha of the world raised his head, he saw a Mahavira hall in front of him. There were already two Buddha lords standing in front of the hall. Weren't they the Mahavira Buddha of the world and the Dipankara archaic Buddha of the world? Behind the two Buddha lords, there were two bodhisattvas. The Namantabhadra Samantabhadra Bodhisattva was in sight. As for the other Buddha lord, he was also familiar with the Namantabhadra Bodhisattva, the Namantabhadra Wisdom Manjushri. After the two bodhisattvas, more Buddhas, bodhisattvas, and arhats were standing there with their palms together. Namantabhadra Bodhisattva. The Maitreya Buddha of the world put his palms together and bowed. Greetings, senior apprentice brothers. Junior apprentice brother, enter the lotus cleansing pond to cultivate your body first. The Mahavira Buddha of the world's face was filled with joy. He raised his hand and pointed at the Maitreya Buddha of the world's feet. I understand. The Maitreya Buddha of the world looked at his feet. It was a boundless pool of jade water. This jade water didn't have any waves. Millions of golden sutra runes were hidden within this jade water. Every drop of jade water showed the birth and destruction of a small kiliacosm. Above this jade water, there were countless lotuses. These lotuses were all blooming with 9-colored brilliance. His body fell within a pillar of golden light. When this golden light fell within the lotus pond, it covered a total of 81 lotuses. Oh! When the Maitreya Buddha of the world lowered his head, he was a little surprised. Previously, his golden body had already started to turn into nothingness. However, when he reached this place, he was completely composed of lines. The golden sutra from before had completely disappeared. It seemed to have condensed within the lines. However, the Maitreya Buddha of the world didn't hesitate at all. His figure landed on the lotuses. The lotuses suddenly expanded and shone with golden radiance. They grew to a height of more than 80 feet. However, when the lotuses bloomed, the entire lotuses suddenly shook. The foundation connected to the dragon cleansing pond let out strange creaking sounds. There were traces of cracks. Looking at the Maitreya Buddha of the world's golden body, which was covered by the lotuses, it didn't become plump due to the expansion of the lotuses. The Mahavairakana Buddha of the world frowned slightly and turned his head to look at the Dipankara archaic Buddha of the world. Then, the two Buddha lords slightly closed their eyes. However, in just a moment, astonishment appeared in their eyes. After exchanging glances with each other, the Mahavairocana Buddha of the world raised his hand slightly. Buddhist lights shone from his hand, which instantly enveloped the entire dragon cleansing pond. There were only 3 world lords left in front of the dragon cleansing pond. Junior apprentice brother. The Mahavairocana Buddha of the world asked, of our Buddhism's golden body 9 transformations, Junior apprentice brother, are you at the first transformation? That's right. The Maitreya Buddha of the world nodded calmly. Junior apprentice brother's exquisite leaf sutra doesn't seem to have been completely cultivated? The Dipankara archaic Buddha of the world continued asking. That's right. The Maitreya Buddha of the world nodded. This disciple came from the Buddhism's last days. I didn't obtain the complete exquisite leaf sutra. Amitba. So that's how it is. How sad. How wonderful. Compassion appeared in the eyes of the Mahavairocana Buddha of the world and the Dipankara archaic Buddha of the world, as if they had seen through the cause and effect of Zhongluer's Buddha fruit being snatched away by Buddha Bodhi. The Mahavairocana Buddha of the world looked at the Maitreya Buddha of the world's Buddha form and said, the Maitreya Buddha of the world is the future Buddha Lord. The exquisite leaf sutra he cultivates is a martial art of the future world. If you want to cultivate the future world, you must first cultivate the past world and the present world. Therefore, the exquisite leaf sutra you obtained isn't incomplete. It's incomplete. If you want to cultivate the exquisite leaf sutra to perfection, you must first cultivate the past and the present. In other words, the missing content of the exquisite leaf sutra doesn't exist in this world. The Dipankara archaic Buddha of the world continued. Instead, it exists in the hands of the past Buddha Lord and the present Buddha Lord. Namo Maitreya Buddha. Only now did the Maitreya Buddha of the world understand. The 2 missing pieces of golden leaves of the exquisite leaf sutra pagoda couldn't be found outside of the Thunderclap temple, unless the Maitreya Buddha of the world obtained them from the past Buddha Lord and the present Buddha Lord after attaining fruition. Chapter 4293. Please wait for a moment, Junior apprentice brother. I'll give you the part of the present world that I'm in charge of. A piece of gold leaf flew out from the swastika between the eyebrows of the Mahavairocana Buddha. The Buddhist light on the gold leaf flickered. It was the boundless aura of the Buddhist kingdom. When the gold leaf landed in front of the Mahavairocana Buddha, the Mahavairocana Buddha said, Junior brother, please listen to me after you get the cultivation method. Namo Mahavairocana. The Mahavairocana Buddha didn't mind and nodded. He pointed at the golden leaf, and it disappeared immediately. He said, please speak, senior apprentice brother. Don't worry. It won't be too late to tell you after the Dipankara Buddha gives you the part of the past world. The Mahavairocana Buddha said with a smile. Buddha. At this moment, the Dipankara Buddha suddenly said, have you thought it through? If it's senior apprentice brother, what would you do? The Mahavairocana Buddha didn't answer but asked instead. I understand your intentions, revered one of the world. The Dipankara Buddha didn't answer but smiled. Another golden leaf appeared from the Mahavairocana Buddha symbol between his eyebrows and fell into the Mahavairocana Buddha's hand. After the golden leaf disappeared, the Mahavairocana Buddha said, Mahavairocana Buddha, you've achieved enlightenment. You won't enter the cycle of reincarnation and fall into the secular world. Your golden body is clean and your Buddha heart is stable. You won't be fated with the secular world anymore. I congratulate you. However, your golden body has just reached the first stage and hasn't gone through the first transformation. To live as long as the heavens and become immortal, you still have to go through 9 transformations to reach perfection. Of course, your foundation is very good. As long as your cultivation method reaches perfection, you'll be able to reach the living Buddha realm. You won't be far from the Buddha kingdom's guidance, going through the first transformation of the golden body, and reaching the 9-layered Buddha land. I understand. Thank you for your reminder. The Mahavairocana Buddha put his palms together and said, however, your golden body has merged with the karma and merit of your previous incarnation. This is a test for you, and it's also an opportunity. If you can pass the karma, you'll be able to achieve the 9 transformations of the golden body. The Mahavairocana revered Buddha changed the topic and said, however, according to what I know on a whim, junior brother, may harm Layin temple because of the heart tribulation. Junior brother, I hope you can remember what I said today. Cultivate your Buddhist heart and scrub the mirrors diligently. Don't let the demonic tribulation get close to you. Hiss. The Maitreya Buddha sucked in a breath of cold air. He frowned at the two revered beings and asked curiously, "Senior brothers, if that's the case, why did you still give me the cultivation method?" Amitabha. The Mahavairocana revered Buddha's face showed mercy as he said, "What belongs to junior brother is junior brother. I will not spoil junior brother's cultivation because of a possible heart tribulation. Once junior martial brother's divine ability gradually matures, I'm sure you'll understand my painstaking efforts." Amitabha. The bitterness on the Dipankara archaic Buddha's face intensified. He pressed his palms together and said, "I hope that junior apprentice brother will remember the words of the World Lord today." The Mahavairocana revered Buddha frowned for a moment. Then he shook his head slightly and said, "Revered Buddha, I've thought of all kinds of possibilities. However, I still came up with nothing. I don't know why I would harm the Lain temple." Amitabha. Junior apprentice brother, you don't have to think too much. We Buddha lords are still humans. Before we attain the 9 transformations golden body, it's impossible for us not to make any mistakes. I'm only feeling it in my heart. It might not come true." The Mahavairocana revered Buddha smiled and said, "When that day comes, junior apprentice brother, just remember what I said today. You don't have to think too much." Revered Buddha, I'll remember what you said today. The Mahavairocana revered Buddha bowed and answered, "Amitabha, Amitabha." The Mahavairocana revered Buddha and the Dipankara archaic Buddha both pressed their palms together. Then, as the Mahavairocana revered Buddha raised his finger, lights and shadows appeared once again. The Mahavairocana revered Buddha smiled and said, "Mahavairocana revered Buddha, please enter the lotus cleansing pond to reconstruct your current body." "Thank you, revered Buddha." The Mahavairocana revered Buddha answered and stepped into the lotus cleansing pond from the lotus. Gurgle. As the Mahavairocana revered Buddha's golden body entered the lotus cleansing pond, bubbles appeared on the jade water. Within the bubbles, billions of small kiliacosms were born and swarmed into the Mahavairocana revered Buddha's golden body. Rumble. A thunderous sound resounded. Before the Mahavairocana could walk out of the lotus cleansing pond, the power of faith had already emerged from the void and continuously poured into the Mahavairocana revered Buddha's golden body. The Buddha radiance behind the golden body flourished. The scene of the Namo Mahavairocana Samantabhadra reconstructing his current body appeared once again. However, the momentum was several times greater. When the Mahavairocana revered Buddha's golden body expanded to 100 feet in size, the lotus platform beneath his feet had also reached the 10th stage. Only then did the golden body of the Mahavairocana revered Buddha fly out of the lotus cleansing pond. Therefore, he had no choice but to give this Buddha fruit to someone else. The Mahavairocana revered Buddha World Lord frowned slightly, and his tone changed. "That's what I wanted to say." The Dipankara archaic Buddha World Lord nodded. "There are many Buddha fruits, but not many Buddha seats. The only Buddha seats that could stand on par with the Maitreya Buddha World Lord are the Namo Dipankara archaic Buddha and the Namo Vairocana Buddha." Since this junior apprentice brother had no choice but to give up on the Maitreya Buddha fruit, he would no longer have the chance to attain the 3 supreme Buddha seats, unless he tampered with his karmic hindrances. The Dipankara archaic Buddha World Lord asked with his eyes closed. Mahavairocana nodded. "That's right." 2 rivals who were vying for the position of the future Buddha Lord had appeared in Lain Temple at the same time. There was bound to be a fierce battle. Just wait and see. After saying that, Mahavairocana closed his eyes, and the Buddhist light around him gradually weakened. Within the light behind him, the endless river of faith flowed. In the incomparably vast southern sea, Xueqi's figure was high up in the sky. In the dark night, other than the roaring of the waves in his ears, there was only the howling of the sea breeze. There was no moon hanging high up in the sky, nor were there any specks of starlight. Layers of dark clouds covered everything that Xueqi's eyes could see. A layer of huge waves appeared around Xueqi's figure. After falling into the sea's surface, another row of waves surged into the distance like a mountain ridge. Several large fishes leaped out from the waves, and their pale white bellies were particularly eye-catching in the darkness. Xueqi released his divine sense and looked around. Then he smiled with relief. Since I'm here, no one will notice me. Moreover, the night is dark and the wind is strong. It's the best time to kill people. I'll kill a few people to see. While speaking, rumble. A few faint traces of lightning appeared in the dark clouds. The sea breeze intensified again, and raindrops fell with a swish-swish sound. The storm that had been brewing for a long time finally fell. Boom. Xueqi patted his head, and the pressure that he had been suppressing since returning to the three continents was released once again. His divine sense penetrated the dark clouds high up in the sky, and touched the green-red transparent lightning that had been following Xueqi. Boom boom boom. Just as Xueqi released his pressure, the green-red lightning immediately roared like a group of dragons that had broken free of their reins. It enveloped an area of 10,000 li, and the stormy dark clouds were instantly destroyed by this lightning. The green-red lightning carried the will of heaven and earth, and mercilessly crossed the space and landed on Xueqi, who was sitting cross-legged on the surface of the sea. Namo Maitreya Buddha. The corner of Xueqi's mouth rose. He understood very well that his Mahayana lightning tribulation was past in the heavenly prison, and the lightning tribulation there was not complete. The ruins and chaos continent that he had experienced later were all from the upper realm, and there was no lightning tribulation. Even if there was lightning, it was different from the three continents. And now that he had returned to the three continents, he had to bear the brunt of the lightning tribulation and completely complete the transformation of the Mahayana realm. Previously on the snowy mountain, in order to not affect Namo Maitreya Buddha's enlightenment, Xueqi had been suppressing his cultivation. Now that he was here, there was no one, and there were no sea beasts within 10,000 li. Wasn't this the time for him to pass the remaining lightning tribulation? Fortunately, I have already experienced most of the tribulation in the heavenly prison, so the remaining lightning tribulation won't affect too much. Just as Xueqi's thoughts were born, the lightning had already landed, hitting his bronze avatar. The sun rose from the place where the sea met the sky. The endless sunlight passed through the rising water vapor and fell on the blue waves. The orange-red color dyed the clear sky and the water surface, and an indescribable vitality was born from this halo. Above the clear sky, there were traces of dark clouds that had not completely dissipated. Above the blue waves, there was a chaotic whirlpool, and all kinds of debris from the bottom of the sea mixed with bubbles were flowing around the whirlpool. In addition to the saltiness of the sea breeze, there was also a strong smell of smoke and fire, which was the remnants of the lightning tribulation. At this time, dozens of days had already passed. Dozens of days of lightning tribulation, as Xueqi thought, was not particularly dangerous. Xueqi passed it without difficulty, and the harvest of the lightning tribulation was obviously huge. Xueqi's nascent soul had absorbed some of the primordial purple qi in his body, and his realm had already begun to touch the final tribulation of the scattered soul realm. At the same time, his own realm of Taoism had also crossed into the so-called tribulation passing realm. However, at this time, Xueqi had no time to be happy. His figure stood in mid-air, swallowing a mouthful of sun essence, and his face revealed a trace of embarrassment. It was not difficult to find the South Sea from the Western Paradise, but to find the South Sea Dragon Palace in the South Sea was a troublesome matter. Xueqi wanted to train his sense of direction, and in his hand, he held the jade eyes given by Sun Jian to find the Dragon Palace in the vast South Sea. Xueqi had some feeling, but seeing the storm in front of him, and in a place where there was no one, Xueqi simply passed the lightning tribulation that had been following him in the sky. However, after passing the lightning tribulation, Xueqi found that he could not find the same feeling as before. Even with the jade eyes given by Sun Jian, it was difficult to find the South Sea Dragon Palace. Forget it! Xueqi simply put away the jade eyes, took out the Kunlun mirror, and released Zhang Hong. As soon as Zhang Hong came out of the space, she bowed and looked around very sensitively, and asked curiously, "Master, this is the South Sea, what are you doing in the South Sea?" Xueqi did not know whether to laugh or cry. He had been flying for a long time, but he could not find the direction of the South Sea. His disciple was good. As soon as she came out, she did not hesitate at all and immediately recognized that it was the South Sea. A human and a dragon. There was no way to compare. Xueqi was too lazy to ask Zhang Hong how she knew it was the South Sea. He only asked, "Zhang Hong, do you know where the South Sea Dragon Palace is?" Of course, this disciple knows. Zhang Hong pursed her lips and smiled. Although the South Sea Dragon Palace is a secret to ordinary dragons, it is nothing to my heavenly abode river. And take me there. Xiao Hua ordered, just the general area is enough. You don't have to face the South Sea Dragon Palace personally. Hee. This disciple is not afraid of AO concrete now. Zhang Hong replied confidently. This is not a matter of whether you are afraid or not. Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, we have left the three mainlands for more than 200 years. Who knows what relationship your heavenly abode river has with the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas? If you rashly get involved, you might end up like a dog instead of a tiger. This disciple will listen to Master. Zhang Hong smiled and said, this disciple is now a Fortune Gate disciple and Lu Yi's wife. In fact, this disciple has nothing to do with the heavenly abode river. It is not up to you to say that it has nothing to do with you. Your identity is there. It is easy for people to use it as an excuse to make a fuss. Xiaohua smiled and said to Zhang Hong as he flew with her. After flying for more than 10 days, they saw more than 10 pillars of water shooting out from the sea in front of them. They turned into splashes in midair and slowly fell back down. Huge whales poked their huge bodies out of the sea. Hundreds of unknown fishes, each several tens of feet long, lined up in a row and leaped out of the sea. Their fins unfolded, forming thin fleshy wings that supported the fishes as they glided through the air. Then with a puff-puff sound which seemed to be cheerful, came from the fishes' mouths. Zhang Hong stopped and pointed into the distance. She bowed and said, Master, about 2,000 li in that direction, you will enter the South Sea Dragon Palace's territory. This 2,000 li area is one of the South Sea Dragon Palace's layers of defense. When this disciple sneaked in, it was the Blue Waves Barren Water Grand Formation. This disciple's cultivation was shallow at that time, and after coming into contact with it, I realized that I was no match for it and escaped with the elder. I don't know if it is still the same Grand Formation. Generally speaking, there are no patrolling soldiers outside the Grand Formation. This disciple did not notice any soldiers chasing after us that day. However, once you reach the core of the Grand Formation or enter the defensive layer, there will be patrolling yakshas patrolling the sea. Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes and looked into the distance. It was also calm. He nodded and said, when I saved you back then, I rode on the dragon boat of the North Sea Dragon Palace. The North Sea Dragon Palace also has some similar defenses. Yes, Master. Zhang Hong said, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas is the center of the Dragon Clan's defense of the Four Seas. Generally, the Sea Clan cannot casually approach the Dragon Palace. Even the majority of the Dragon Palace's defensive formations are Xiantian. Even if the Dragon Palace's crown prince enters and leaves the Dragon Palace, he cannot only rely on tokens. He can only rely on dragon boats and other weapons of the Dragon Clan. Ordinary patrolling envoys can only be sent in and out by the Dragon Palace's guards at specific times. Chapter 4295. At this point, Zhang Hong smiled and said, of course, when one's strength reaches Master's level, he is already a target of the Dragon Palaces of the Four Seas. The Dragon Kings of the Four Seas will definitely give him a token such as a dragon pendant. Once Master comes within 100,000 miles of the Dragon Palace with the dragon pendant, the Dragon Kings will sense it and immediately come out to greet you. There is no need to break through these defenses. On the three continents, other than the mysterious Grand Mist Ancestor, I'm afraid there is no Taoist cultivator with a 9th grade essence force. Who knows what kind of face the Dragon King of the South Sea will have when he sees me? Xiao Hua shrugged and said, you go back to the Shenhua continent first. I will go and take a look. Yes, Master. If you need anything, feel free to call me out. On the Shenhua continent, the descendants of the Dragon Clan are not necessarily inferior to the Dragon Palaces of the Four Seas. Zhang Hong replied heroically. Although the Lu clan is the #1 family in the Shenhua continent, my disciple, don't forget how long the Dragon Palaces of the Four Seas have existed in the three continents. You only know the situation after the fall of the Heavenly Abode River. I'm afraid you don't know how the Heavenly Abode River used to be. The Dragon Palaces of the Four Seas control the Four Seas. Sometimes, they even look down on the Dragon Island. Their foundation. I don't need to say anything more, right? Xiao Hua said earnestly. Zhang Hong hurriedly lowered her head and said, yes, disciple understands. After Jiang Hong returned to the Shenhua continent, Xiaohua transformed into a rainbow and broke through the sky. In just a moment, he had arrived at the place that Jiang Hong had pointed out. Xiaohua released his divine consciousness, and indeed, it was as Jiang Hong had said. In the space tens of thousands of miles in front of him, there was an indescribable ripple of light. This ripple of light was condensed into strands like water vapor, and every strand of light carried an indescribable might. What was special was that these ripples of light floated in a large area without any pattern, and there was no gap at all. There weren't any fishes or seabirds approaching this space. Even the clouds high up in the sky had tactfully fled. The scorching sun that had already risen high up in the sky shone down directly, distorting the light curtain in this space into several sections. Heh. Xiaohua's divine sense swept over, but was blocked by this wave of light. He didn't forcefully activate his divine sense, but instead laughed coldly. If it was in the past, he would most likely activate his divine sense and test the power of this formation. But now, why should he personally break the formation? With a wave of Xiaohua's hand, the huge thunderbolt flashed with lightning and landed in the air with a rumbling sound. Its powerful aura caused the sea surface to cave in. The sea breeze was also suppressed by the thunderbolt and became silent. Xiaohua's figure landed on the thunderbolt. His hands rubbed together, and streaks of crystal light fell into the thunderbolt. They turned into rays of light and rose from the edge of the thunderbolt, protecting the entire thunderbolt. Then, with a loud rumbling sound, the thunderbolt began to slowly rush into the formation. Boom! Without waiting for the thunderbolt to get close to the formation, the sharp lightning in front of the thunderbolt had already pierced into it. But within a few miles of the thunderbolt, a trembling sound could be heard. Huge crystal-like crystals began to pile up at an extremely fast speed. Not to mention that the cultivator's body would be smashed into meat paste by these huge crystals. Even the thunderbolt's lightning was extremely shaken by these crystals. The thunderbolt's lightning that acted as the vanguard was annihilated after smashing a dozen or so crystals. Interesting. The corner of Xiaohua's mouth slightly raised. The transcendence energy that was sent into the thunderbolt had begun to slow down, and the thunderpool inside the thunderbolt had already been activated, causing the thunderbolt's speed to become even faster. Boom boom. With an unstoppable force, the thunderbolt rushed into the crystal. The huge crystal was directly smashed into pieces by the thunderbolt, and these pieces were turned into pure water-type spiritual chi of heaven and earth in the thunderbolt's lightning. And, as the thunderbolt crashed into the crystal, more and more crystals were born. Within a range of thousands of miles, it condensed into a castle-like defense. This defensive castle was made of solid crystals. It seemed to be indestructible, but in front of the thunderbolt, this sturdiness was so pale. Wherever the thunderbolt rushed past, the neat crystal disintegrated, and a huge trembling sound resounded in the space of thousands of miles. Woo-woo. After the thunderbolt rushed in for hundreds of miles, the surrounding space was completely filled with shattered crystals. At this time, a strange wind suddenly appeared from the void near the thunderbolt. Waves of light blue astral wind appeared on the surface of the sea. Wherever the astral wind passed, everything was frozen, whether it was the spiritual chi of heaven and earth or the shattered crystals. Even the dazzling lightning revealed a pale color. The astral wind came and went quickly, but the space within 1,000 miles turned into a solid ice ball. The thunderbolt was trapped in the ice ball. Looking at the lightning through the ice ball, it was like looking at fireworks at night. Xiaohua stood on the thunderbolt, not in a hurry to activate the thunderbolt. In his ears, after the thunderbolt was frozen, the entire thunderpool let out a roar. Thick bolts of lightning coiled around the thunderbolt like old vines, and the powerful force of the thunderbolt struggled to break free from the confinement of the astral wind. Gotcha! In front of the thunderbolt, where the huge bolts of lightning collided, a crack appeared on the huge ice ball. Once this crack appeared, it immediately spread out in all directions. In just a moment, the ice ball that was thousands of miles in size was covered with cracks. Boom! Like the eruption of magma, the lightning bolts actually turned into liquid and rushed out, exploding the entire ice ball into pieces. The thunderbolt broke through the ice ball's blockade, and like a sharp knife, it directly pierced into the center of the array. The thunderbolt only flew 100 miles forward, and the entire sea began to boil again. Large and small water columns rushed out from the bottom of the sea, mixed with many reefs, and rushed towards the thunderbolt. Boom boom! The nearly 10,000 kilograms of huge rocks with the impact of the sea waves smashed the thunderboat, causing it to tremble again. Countless bolts of lightning sprinkled down, and the thunderboat's pitch-black hull was revealed in the impact. Roar roar. Fine dragon patterns actually appeared on the hull of the thunderboat. These dragon patterns covered the surface of the thunderboat, and strange dragon roars came from the patterns. The dragon tattoo blocked all the attacks. The entire lightning boat merely paused for a moment before it roared wildly again. Like a crazy sea beast, lightning reappeared. It dragged its swaying tail as it charged into the depths of the sea under the ambush of countless water pillars. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! The impact of the thunderboat's impact was so great that it activated the arrays within several thousand miles. The yakshas who were patrolling the sea turned pale with fright. They fled while sending messages to the dragon palace. At the same time, many shrimp soldiers and crab generals rushed out from the bottom of the sea, each holding a weapon, and lined up neatly on the surface of the sea, waiting to meet the enemy. Boom! The thunderboat broke through the sky, and its huge hull blocked the sunlight. Its shadow covered the surface of the sea, and also some members of the oceanic race. Seeing such a huge flying boat, and the might of the flying boat that made people tremble, all the members of the oceanic race were stunned. At this time, Xueqi's thin and tall figure flew out from the thunderboat, and he released part of his pressure. His gaze swept through the crowd of oceanic race, and he looked into the distance, and he said indifferently, "This old man is Xueqi of the Tao sect. Today, I have come to pay a visit to the South Sea Dragon King." Hiss. Although Xueqi's figure was small, his aura far surpassed that of the thunderboat. He stood in front of the thunderboat, and he had already taken away the dazzling light of the thunderboat. As soon as Xueqi's words came out, under the powerful pressure, all the members of the oceanic race found it difficult to stand on the surface of the sea, and they fell into the sea one after another. Xueqi didn't pay attention to these members of the oceanic race, and he only narrowed his eyes, looking forward. He saw that the sea inside the array was no different from the rest of the sea, but this sea was glittering with golden light, and a palace that was 10,000 miles in size was floating on the surface of the sea. This palace was very huge, and it was similar to the palace Xueqi saw on the Dragon Island. Just the palace gate was 10,000 feet in size, and those thick pillars were like mountain peaks. In front of the palace, there was a huge palace gate, and on the high signboard that seemed to break through the sky, there were two strange characters written on it. Xueqi's gaze swept over, and a voice in the dragon language appeared in his mind. It was the two words South Sea. However, Xueqi faced this imposing palace, and he only gave it a glance, and then looked at the stairs in front of the palace gate. Those stairs seemed to lead to the palace gate above the sea, but in Xueqi's divine sense, there was a huge whirlpool that led straight to the bottom of the sea. If Xueqi's divine sense wasn't strong enough, he might not have discovered the strangeness. After seeing all this, Xueqi frowned. After all, he had already revealed the strength of a high-level cultivator. The Dragon King of the South Sea Dragon Palace might not come out to greet him, but the Dragon Generals of the Dragon Palace should have come out, right? But at this time, not even a Dragon General with some strength had appeared. Humph! Xueqi coldly snorted, and withdrew his pressure. He also withdrew the thunderboat with a flick of his sleeve, and asked somewhat angrily, "What? Could it be that the South Sea Dragon Palace doesn't welcome this Xiao? This little one greets Dragon Master." Just as Xueqi's voice fell, a sea-patrolling yaksha flew out from under the sea, and somewhat trembled as he kowtowed in front of this Xiao. "This little one has already sent a subordinate to report to the Dragon Palace. Please wait a moment, Dragon Master." Dragon Master? Hee. This Xiao actually forgot. This Xiao also has the title of Dragon Master. Xueqi stared blankly for a moment. Then he smiled and nodded. Not long after he came out from the Dragon Island, he fell into the heavenly prison. After tens of thousands of years of wandering, he had already forgotten this title on the Dragon Island. Is your Dragon King at home? Xueqi originally had a casual temperament. Seeing the sea-patrolling yaksha being so respectful to him, he didn't put on airs and casually asked. The sea-patrolling yaksha hesitated for a moment, and replied, "This little one doesn't know the whereabouts of my Dragon King, so I also don't know if the Dragon King is in the Dragon Palace." "What about the Dragon Generals of the South Sea?" Xueqi asked again. The sea-patrolling yaksha was even more hesitant. After all, Xueqi wasn't of the dragon race. Although he had the title of Dragon Master, the sea-patrolling Yaksha didn't dare to tell all the secrets of the South Sea Dragon Palace to Xueqi. Humph. Xueqi coldly snorted again, and suddenly raised his head, looking at the palace in the sky. Hearing Xueqi's anger, the sea-patrolling Yaksha hurriedly bowed and said, "Dragon Master, please calm down. Dragon Master, please calm down." Chapter 4296. Xueqi was not angry at the hesitation of the patrolling yakshas. He had noticed that someone was spying on the Dragon Palace, but when he scanned the place with his divine sense, it was empty, and he did not find anything. But what Xueqi did not know was that at the bottom of the sea under the Dragon Palace, a bloody scene had just unfolded in a huge palace. This palace was similar to Ao Shang's palace. There was a high platform at the front, and a huge golden table was placed on top of it. Behind the golden table was a huge mattress. This mattress was transparent, and there were many colorful crystal beads embedded in it. The light of these crystal beads lingered around each other, making it look like a beautiful mobile. There were no dragons on the high platform, only 2 armored dragons standing proudly in front of the golden table. Below the high platform was the main hall, and on both sides, there were a dozen or so small golden tables. On these golden tables, there were some spirit fruits, wine, and food. In particular, in the corner of the wine and food, there was a special fragrant exotic fruit. Behind these golden tables were some dragons, but these dragons were all lying on the ground with their eyes closed, and some saliva was flowing out of their mouths and noses. Close to the dragon tribe were armored dragon generals. Although these dragon generals were holding weapons in their hands, they were also lying weakly on the ground. There was a strange smile on their faces and their eyes were tightly shut. On the contrary, behind the pillars on both sides of the main hall stood dozens of valiant dragon generals. These dragon generals were either holding long spears or huge sabers, and each of them was exuding a shocking murderous aura. Under the murderous aura, the main hall seemed very quiet. The sea water was as transparent as crystal, and there was not even a bubble. On the 4 sides of the main hall, the huge coral trees were emitting colorful light, and some of the water plants around the coral trees were not swaying at all. Everything in the main hall seemed to be confined. 4th Prince. At this time, a voice broke the silence. It was one of the dragons on the high platform. This dragon was wearing a bright yellow armor, and the armor covered his face, making it impossible to see his appearance. Now is the time to make a decision. The other dragon, who was originally facing the golden seat, also turned around at this time. It was the 4th Prince of the South Sea Dragon Palace, Ao Qian, whom Xueqi had seen in the stacked Jade Legacy realm. Although Ao Qian's face was filled with arrogance, his eyes flashed with hesitation. His gaze swept across the 2 sides of the hall as he asked in a low voice, "Senior, do we really have to do this? Is there no other way?" The dragon that covered his face sneered. He looked at the golden throne and said, "There is only one person in the entire South Sea Dragon Palace who can sit on this golden throne. If there were no accidents, do you think it's possible for you to sit in that position?" Ao Qian smiled bitterly and said, "How is that possible? This junior is only the 4th Crown Prince. Above me are the 1st Crown Prince, 2nd Crown Prince, and 3rd Crown Prince. Furthermore, Royal Father favors the 2nd Crown Prince. Even if the 1st Crown Prince cannot sit on this golden throne, this position is not something this junior can sit on. If that's the case, why can't there be an accident?" Even though what was done, the dragon race being continued to speak to Ao Qian patiently. He was in no hurry at all. "We've already done so much. Do you think that there's still a way out for you?" Ao Qian still smiled bitterly. Actually, this junior really didn't think that much. If not for senior, at this point, a trace of regret flashed across Ao Qian's eyes. He lowered his head and looked at the dragons lying on the ground. He didn't say anything else. The dragon race being was quick to act. He didn't hesitate at all. He smiled and said, "Hee hee, so the 4th Crown Prince only has love in his heart and doesn't have any ambitions. Then this old man has misjudged you. No matter, my sons. Wake the princes up. This old man will apologize to them." "Yes." The dozens of dragon generals behind the pillar all agreed. They raised their hands and were about to take out the dragon shell. "Wait. Seeing that the dragon race was about to do it, Ao Chen panicked again. He hurriedly called out, "Senior, don't be anxious. Fourth Crown Prince, is there anything else?" The dragon race said with a smile. "This old man has to hurry up and settle this matter here. I still have to go back and report to the elders." This. Ao Chen smiled bitterly. It's not that this junior doesn't want to listen to senior's advice, but to really cut off the blood relatives that I grew up with. This junior really can't bear it. The dragon race nodded. "You're not wrong. To tell you the truth, it's precisely because of this bit of kinship in your heart that the elders value you. If you didn't hesitate to make a move, this old man might really change his mind. Since you care about your blood relatives, this old man really has to help you." As he spoke, the dragon race raised his hand and pointed at the first crown prince and second crown prince who were lying on the ground on the left and right below the high platform. He asked, "When these two princes are scheming and fighting for the golden throne, have they ever shown mercy?" "Never." Ao Chen shook his head. "According to what this junior knows, if there's a chance between them, they definitely won't let each other live. It's also because of this that this junior has the chance to go to Dragon Island to train. Not the two of them." "What about them to you? If they knew that you wanted to take the Dragon King's position, would they let you live?" The dragon race asked with interest. "Sigh. How is that possible?" Ao Chen smiled bitterly again. "Ever since this junior was sensible, I knew that the position of Dragon King did not belong to me. I definitely could not have any other thoughts. All these years, this junior has never told the other members of the Dragon Clan about my thoughts. I have never dared to look at that golden throne. In the eyes of the other dragons, this junior is just a carefree prince. Even so, the first crown prince has been beating around the bush and arranging spies around this junior. Isn't that the case? They don't have any kinship in their eyes. Why do you have to worry?" The dragon race laughed. "What you're doing is just what they want to do but can't do. Furthermore, the South Sea Dragon Palace will only decline in the hands of the dragon race who doesn't recognize their own kin. It will forever be at the bottom of the dragon palaces of the four seas. Only in your hands can it have a chance of glory and become the head of the dragon palaces of the four seas. Perhaps." Ao Chen's gaze was a little unfocused. "Fourth crown prince." The dragon race spoke again. "To be honest, today's opportunity is really a gift from the heavens. Your royal father went to the East Sea Dragon Palace for a banquet, and this old man just happened to be here. If this old man didn't have the elders' orders, how could the first crown prince, second crown prince, and third crown prince come together for a banquet? If this old man didn't have the deity parting flower and the fourth crown prince coincidentally had the bewitching wine, how could the three crown princes sleep so peacefully? All these coincidences. You don't think this old man is scheming, do you?" "That's not true." Ao Chen regained his senses and replied. "This junior has only obtained the bewitching wine a few days ago. This junior has never mentioned it to anyone. Senior, you can't possibly know. Therefore, such an excellent opportunity is a gift from the heavens. If the fourth crown prince doesn't grasp it, then you won't have such an opportunity in the future." The dragon race said meaningfully. "Furthermore, when other dragons have this opportunity in the future, fourth crown prince, you can't blame the heavens and accuse others." But the fourth crown prince still seemed to hesitate. The dragon race had already begun to frown. At this moment, a strange sound began to come from outside the hall. It sounded rather hurried. "Who is it?" The fourth crown prince, Ao Chen, was furious. He roared at the dragon general who was standing guard outside the hall. "Didn't this prince say it already? No matter what happens outside, you can't disturb this prince." "Yes, this subordinate understands." The vigilant dragon general agreed without hesitation. He waved his hand and a crescent-shaped dragon weapon appeared. The warning sound instantly disappeared. "Fourth crown prince, could it be that you still have some misgivings?" At this moment, the dragon race came to his senses and asked in a low voice. Ao Chen nodded. "Indeed. Although royal father isn't in the dragon palace, if he returns and sees the three crown princes missing, senior, what do you think he'll think?" The dragon race nodded. "That's a problem. This isn't easy to answer. After all, you're the one who benefited the most. Anyone who guesses will put you at the top of the list of suspects. However, even if that's the case, so what? Does the South Sea Dragon King want to kill you as well? It's not impossible. Ao Qian answered with a bitter face. That's this junior's greatest misgivings. Buzz buzz. Before the dragon tribe could reply, an unusual activity was once again transmitted from outside the hall. Ao Qian's face was startled. He glanced in the direction of the hall door before looking at the dragon tribe. Finally, he opened his mouth and said, "Something unusual must have occurred outside the hall. Otherwise, it is impossible for this junior subordinate to repeatedly warn us. Fourth Crown Prince, let's go take a look." The dragon race sighed softly. He seemed to be very dissatisfied with the Fourth Crown Prince's indecisiveness. Ao Qian nodded at the dragon general outside the hall door. He clenched his claws and glanced at the 3 crown princes below the high platform. Clearly, he was prepared to make a move if he sensed that something was wrong. The dragon general raised his dragon claw and grabbed at the hall door. A whirlpool appeared in the jade water outside the door. A moment later, a fist-sized dragon crystal flew out of the whirlpool. The dragon general hurriedly picked it up and respectfully presented it to the 4th crown prince. Ao Qian took the dragon crystal and scanned it with his yuan will. His expression changed drastically as he cried out involuntarily, "Enemy attack? How is this possible? Someone actually took advantage of the weakness of the South Sea Dragon Palace's defensive array to attack the array?" When Ao Qian said this, not only did the dragon race beside him, but even the dragon generals near the hall also changed their expressions. Today, in order to set up a trap, Ao Qian used the Dragon Palace's secret order to call back all the dragon generals within the defensive array. Firstly, he wanted to kill the dragon generals loyal to the 3 crown princes. Secondly, he was afraid that the 3 crown princes would resist. Ao Qian wanted to concentrate his forces near the hall. In his opinion, the South Sea Dragon Palace had not been attacked by enemies for tens of thousands of years. How could there be a change in half a day? However, an enemy had taken advantage of the moment when the defensive array was relaxed to attack. In that case, who was the enemy that came to invade? It was all destined by the heavens. You're hesitating again, saying that you don't have any excuses. Now, the heavens have sent us an excuse. If the 4th prince continues to hesitate, he'll really lose the favor of the heavens. Excuse? You mean Xiao Longsher? Ao Qian still didn't understand. What bullshit, Dragon Master? The dragon coldly scolded. What qualifications does a mere human have to be our dragon clan's dragon master? It's just an empty title that Ao Jia casually gave out in order to win over people's hearts and strengthen his own forces. No one in my dragon island will take this title seriously. Indeed. Ao Qian also didn't understand. That day, this Xiao Hua was indeed very close to the little clan elder, and he also has our dragon clan's bloodline. However, if we were to treat him as some dragon master, even this junior feels that it's inappropriate. If that 5-clawed golden dragon that appeared in the folded jade legacy realm is our dragon master, then it's still acceptable. The 5-clawed golden dragon is a dragon that Xiao Hua secretly brought in. The dragon immediately blurted out. Ao Jia said that he couldn't move the 5-clawed golden dragon to work for him, so he sold a favor to Xiao Hua. He wanted to influence that 5-clawed golden dragon through Xiao Hua. So that's how it is. Although Ao Qian felt that this explanation was a bit far-fetched, he didn't have the time to think too much about it. However, what does this have to do with an excuse? 4th prince. The dragon was helpless. He could only say clearly, "You killed the 3 princes, so why don't you just shift the blame to Xiao Hua?" But Ao Qian was even more confused. Xiao Hua only has the strength of the 6th level of essence power. How could he kill the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd princes in succession? This junior has no way to explain it in front of royal father. What else do you need to explain? The dragon sneered. The dead can't redress their grievances. Why do you care what his cultivation is? And Ao Qian narrowed his eyes. He already understood what the dragon was talking about. 4th prince? The dragon waited for a moment, then asked in a drawn-out voice. The opportunity will not come again. This junior remembers that Xiao Hua seems to have an extremely sharp magic tool? Ao Qian asked very abruptly. The dragon was startled, then shook his head and said, "This old man doesn't seem to have seen him use it." Ao Qian asked curiously, "Could it be that Senior has also entered the Folded Jade Legacy realm?" The dragon knew that he had a slip of the tongue. His face was full of embarrassment, but fortunately, he was wearing a helmet and couldn't see it. He casually replied, "Of course this old man didn't, Shua." Without waiting for him to finish speaking, he saw Ao Qian suddenly wave his hand. That dragon claw emitted a silver brilliance, and a blade that was 100 zhong long rushed out. It landed on the left side of the high platform, right between the neck of the first prince who had collapsed on the ground. Puh! With a sound, the first prince's dragon head flew out. That dragon blood spurted out, instantly dyeing the surrounding ground completely red. The surrounding seawater also began to surge with a bloody light. That dragon clearly didn't expect Ao Qian to suddenly make a move. He was actually startled for a moment, then stretched out his dragon claw and raised a finger. He smiled and said, "Fourth prince has made this old man have a whole new level of respect for you." Ao Qian looked at the ground indifferently. The first prince's dragon head was wearing a slightly small crown. The pearls on the crown were scattered and soaked in thick dragon blood. The dragon's eyes on the dragon's head were actually open at this moment, as if he had died with grievances. Humph! Ao Qian coldly snorted, and a dragon-slaying saber appeared in his dragon claw. Then, with a flash of saber light, the other two dragons behind the gold table were personally killed by him. The thick dragon blood rushed into the seawater with the dragon's soul. Gradually, the dragon's soul faded and disappeared, but the dragon blood filled the surroundings of the seawater. "Clean it up." Ao Qian put away the dragon-slaying saber and ordered, "Kill all 3 of their personal dragon generals." Then, just as he said this, Ao Qian suddenly froze, because he saw Xiao Hua looking at him from the mirror. That gaze seemed to be able to see through everything. "What's wrong?" The dragon beside him was also happy that Ao Qian was so nimble. Hearing him suddenly stop, he couldn't help but ask curiously. Ao Qian blinked. When he looked again, Xiao Hua had already looked elsewhere, as if his gaze had just swept past by occasionally. "Nothing," Ao Qian responded, and then ordered the dragon generals, "Clean it up, we will grandly welcome the dragon master of my dragon race here." "Yes." The dragon generals quickly cleaned up, and the dragon said with a smile, "Looks like this old man is no longer needed here. This old man will take his leave now. I hope that when this old man sees the fourth prince again, the fourth prince has already fulfilled his wish." "Thank you, Senior." Ao Qian bowed and said with a smile, "Senior, please return to Dragon Island. Please report to the elder that if this junior sits on this golden chair, I will definitely respect the elder's wishes." "Good." The dragon helped Ao Qian up and nodded in response. Without wasting any time, he led some dragon generals out from the side of the hall. Xiao Hua's divine sense swept across the light and shadow of the South Sea Dragon Palace on the surface of the sea and didn't find anything strange. Naturally, he looked at the stairs of the Dragon Palace and said to the sea patrolling Xueqi, "Looks like the old Dragon King doesn't welcome this old man as an uninvited guest." No. The sea patrolling Xueqi hurriedly said with a smile. "Not to mention that Senior is a dragon master. My South Sea Dragon Palace should welcome you respectfully. Even if ordinary human cultivators come to my South Sea Dragon Palace, my Dragon King will also treat them with respect. My Dragon King hasn't come out for a long time. I'm afraid that there is something important in the hall, right?" "All right." Xiao Hua responded faintly and didn't say anything else. Xiao Hua came this time, in addition to borrowing the teleportation array of the South Sea Dragon Palace to go to the North Sea Dragon Palace, he also had an extremely important purpose, which was to get the last metal and wood magnetism from the South Sea Dragon Palace. Back then, Xian gave Xiao Hua the refining method of the 5 elements wishful heaven cudgel, and at the same time gave Xiao Hua the location of several magnetism. This South Sea Dragon Palace had the metal and wood magnetism that Xiao Hua needed. Since he had a request, Xiao Hua had no choice but to lower his head slightly. He pondered for a moment, put his hands behind his back, and stood on the surface of the sea, waiting quietly. Who would have thought that after Xiao Hua stood there for half a cup of tea's time, he didn't see the South Sea Dragon King come out, and even a dragon general didn't appear. Xiao Hua's face gradually turned cold, and the sea-patrolling Yiksha also felt that something was wrong. Ha ha! Xiao Hua laughed and said loudly, "Since the old dragon doesn't welcome this old man, then this old man has no choice but to force his way in." "Senior!" The sea-patrolling Yiksha hurriedly shouted, "How about Senior wait for a while, Junior will." Without waiting for the sea-patrolling Yiksha to finish speaking, Xiao Hua's figure had already landed on the steps of the light shadow of the South Sea Dragon Palace. Whoa! A strong whirlwind blew out from the dragon gate on the light shadow, and hundreds of dragon scales flashed with golden light as they fell along with the whirlwind, wrapping around Xiao Hua's body. Seeing this, the sea-patrolling Yiksha couldn't help but feel anxious, because he knew where the dragon scales fell. If the one who came was a dragon, the dragon scales would trigger the restriction of the Dragon Palace, opening the passage to the Dragon Palace under the sea. But if the one who came was not a dragon, these dragon scales would turn into sharp blades and kill the one who came. Of course, in the eyes of the sea-patrolling Yiksha, these dragon scales absolutely couldn't hurt Xiao Hua, but these dragon scales would successfully ignite the anger of Xiao Hua, who had lost his patience. At that time, thinking of this, the sea-patrolling Yiksha didn't dare to think too much. He only wanted to rush over and block Xiao Hua. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.